a Wild Earth Explorer, you can build your own memories by joining our guides for regular fireside chats. Subscription payments can be made by PayPal, credit card, and now bank transfer. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Our bodies are made up of about 60% water, which means that in a very short space of time, you can dehydrate completely. A relatively efficient way of collecting water early in the morning is to take an absorbent material like a sock and to walk through the grass, absorbing the condensed dewdrops on the grass. Once the material is saturated, you can then squeeze it out into a container, or you can suck it out directly into your mouth.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at and beyond Pinde Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on Wild Earth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
Is it just pretended to be dead? Oh, that was amazing. I can't. How do I? It's like that is hands down the coolest.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
What makes and beyond Pinde Private Game Reserve so special is our massive array of habitats, and with that comes of course a beautiful diversity of landscapes, but also an incredible biodiversity in terms of plants, bird life and animal life, as well as of course our conservation success stories with cheetah, with rhinos, now with pangolins too.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth. This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to your live safari in the African bush. We're going to have a quick look at the weather in all our different locations for the afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to Tswalu. I'm Deirdre, and on camera with me this afternoon is Morgan, and it's quite toasty here, as you may have seen, so we are going to head from waterhole to waterhole and check where everything is in the shade this afternoon, because it is really, really hot out. So we're just seeing watching the busy sociable weavers in and out the nests there on the right-hand side, which is quite typical for them. You can probably hear them in the mic because we've got one really large nest over our shoulder, but that nest there, you can see, is quite the architectural marvel. Little busybodies. So why we always come to waterholes in the late afternoon is because the animals have been in the shade, and as soon as the temperature does start dropping a bit, those that want to drink water before it gets too dark will start coming down to water. There's always bird activity right throughout the day at a waterhole, so there's never a bad time to be at a waterhole if you're birding, because different birds will come in the morning, different birds will come in sort of mid-morning, particularly for us, the sandgrouse come in at sort of 10, 11 in the morning. And then have their drink before flying off, and then the waterhole's always just busy for especially the doves and the starlings that'll come through to the waterhole. And then areas like underneath that big camel thorn, nice and shady, so it's always a good idea to check those waterholes. You may find predators lying in the thickets in those shady areas waiting for the other animals to come and drink, so it's always advantageous to check waterholes. Any waterhole we always go past, we just sort of scan around underneath all the trees to see if there is anything there. Okay, so I have been talking about how toasty the weather is. Let's have a look at the weather.
Good afternoon, everybody, and a warm welcome to Ambion's Pinda Private Game Reserve. We have come out to the far western part of the reserve, overlooking the plains, and upon arrival we've come across quite a large herd of zebra and wildebeest who are quite relaxed. You can see the zebra, some are just standing resting, others busy grazing, and then the wildebeest behind them just lying down on the road resting. And this morning in the same area is where we saw a cheetah mother and her youngster, and we've come out here in search of them to see if they haven't perhaps had any luck finding a meal. My name is Matt, and behind the camera we've got Simon, and yeah, we're really hoping that we are able to find those cheetah, because this morning they were quite active, in fact very active, looking for a potential meal. And in amongst this herd of zebra and wildebeest are a couple of youngsters who you can see lying about in the road. That one who's lying flat in the road now looks like it's fast asleep. There's a crowned lapwing in the mix there as well, but quite a lot of movement from the zebra. Those tails constantly moving, ears twitching, and I think just very happy zebra. We've had an incredible amount of rain, as I'm sure you've heard from the guys in the past while. I think we had about 100 mils in one day, so every last watering hole on this reserve is either full or overflowing, which is fantastic news. So everyone has no need to go very far in search of water or either good grazing grounds. And just looking over to the left, there is again another really large herd of zebra out in the open, and a huge, if I look at them now through the binoculars, a tower of giraffe standing still. In fact, some of them are lying down, also just resting, like you saw now with the wildebeest. You just see their heads, and don't let this distance fool you. If we were to drive up to them, they'd still be taller than us as they stand. In amongst this herd of zebra that we're looking at now is one particularly dark zebra, or its face is particularly dark, should I say. There we are. It's now resting its face looking at us as we single it out. And I think just compared to the one next door to it, it's looking really tired. So I can imagine that zebra really old, or to be really old in amongst this herd. And it's amazing because you don't see zebra with such colorations very often. And that one, yeah, clearly as strong as ever with the rest of the herd, able to graze really good grass at the moment. The grass is extremely lush. And if we are lucky enough to find these cheetah, I'm hoping that they're not lying down in this long grass, because that's when animals are able to literally just disappear. I don't know if you heard that zebra calling. Doris, you're asking why zebra and wildebeest are often seen together. For them, it's just safety in numbers. There's obviously a lot more eyes and ears listening out for predators like lions, even cheetah with young foals and calves around. So it just gives them a better chance. As well as the fact that zebra are bulk grazers, so they'll eat the top half of the grass. They're not very fussy, the hindgut fermenters. And then the wildebeest that you see that follow them are selective grazers. They'll go eat the bottom half of that grass, which is slightly more nutritious for them. So yeah, several reasons why they're together, but you know, working in tandem for both grazing and then just in terms of safety for each other. They have each other's backs. No pun intended, with everyone resting their heads on each other's backs as we watch them. And really nice to hear that call that you heard now as I kept quiet. Something that I don't know if we formed the culprit of that call, but maybe the stallion just announcing himself. You often hear it when they're a distance away from you, not next door to them, but that was really nice to hear. I think, yeah, we'll leave this herd of wildebeest and zebra in peace, but we're going to head across to Tswalu and see what they found.
So we've got a very battle-scarred gentleman here. You back at Tswalu? Look at that ear. He's a recognizable individual with his very tatty ear. So he's been around for a really long time. He's also got sort of one long horn, one half horn. But if you just sort of go slowly down his body, you almost see the battle scars and the wounds, especially around his rump area. So he certainly is a prize fighter, and he's done really, really well. So those scars there on the rump will come from a serious fight from another male where they've used those ossicones, knocking at each other severely and almost knocking the skin right off. They'll rub that raw, and that'll take time to heal. So he's seriously battle scarred and doesn't have a really sort of large calcium deposit on the top of the head, but that doesn't mean he's not a good fighter. I'd hate to know what the other guy looks like. So it's just him by himself, and he's moving on through. He's making a beeline for a camel thorn, but he hasn't quite got there yet. So that torn ear won't necessarily hamper him in any way. He can still hear what's going on around him. His sort of collecting dishes are not necessarily perfect, but he'll certainly will be able to still hear what's going on around him. But it has been floppy like that for a really, really long time. So it's just cartilage. So he's eating now on that camel thorn tree. Apparently everyone's saying a real survivor. Absolutely. As soon as they get to fighting age, they can get into some really, really brutal fights with large bulls. So much so that when they're swinging that large neck and head like a mallet or a club, you can actually hear those blows from a long distance away if they have chosen to fight severely. And unfortunately, there are circumstances where they can even fight to the death, or one can get killed as a result of not giving up. So don't forget to send your questions to #WildEarth and then put @FC in front of the question. We're going to move on, but we're going to send you across to Tristan for his hello.
Well, while Deirdre moves on from the giraffe, we've just had a passing Ellie, who's obviously just had a swim at the moment. He's come out of Sydney's dam and is all wet and full of water on his skin. But before we kind of get into him and his friend, who should come shortly, my name is Tristan, and on camera I've got him Paul this afternoon, and it's wonderful to have you all along for the ride. Now, we've come up towards Sydney's dam just to see if there's any sign of Cara or her kill, but it looks like her kill's completely gone, so either she finished it during the night or dropped it, and that's led to her kind of moving off and being somewhere else. I'll just have a little scratch around just in case she's still here, but generally when a leopard finishes their kill, they don't really stick around. They normally go for a little bit of a walk and go and kind of check out what else is around. In my territory a little bit, generally get out of the area, unless of course there is another they make another kill or something like that over the course of the next few days. This Ellie's not playing the game. He just wants to disappear all the time. He's now gone behind the bush. I don't know where his friend went. There was two of them. I'm sad because we obviously just missed them swimming. I saw one as it was leaving the dam, and like I say, they are so full of water that it's very much means that they were all the way in. Even the top of their heads are full of water. All right, well, we'll let him go. He doesn't want to be seen, obviously, and we'll carry on. In the meantime, let's go across to Trish and see where she is and what she's up to.
Good afternoon, fine people. It is a very warm out here, as I'm sure that Tristan would have told you, and you'd have seen with the weather. And we are we're here at this brown ivory tree, hoping to find Shadulu again. Hi everyone, it's me, Trishana. I've got Davy on camera with me, and we're both very, very wet and sweaty from the heat, the humidity, all this mugginess. And that's why we were hoping that Shadulu wouldn't have moved far. But she doesn't appear to be definitely not in the tree anymore. But the tree is creating a nice, very big portion of shade. And we thought maybe she'd be sitting under a bush somewhere. But no luck just yet. But again, you know, with this long grass, so difficult to tell. But that's why we're kind of having a little bit of a drive around, just to look at the underneath of the bushes and trying to be a bit careful so that we're not in any places that are too waterlogged. Interestingly, I haven't seen any obvious tracks leading out of the property, but let's have a quick look together. I'm going to go round. So look, you can see, look at that shade. All this shade created by this brown ivory tree that she could have taken advantage of. Now the exit of the property, to go out of the property through the southern boundary, is very, very close. You'll see it in a moment. So she could have exited the property. She could have turned and gone west on Mendoza, but bit wet here. Let's pick up some speed. So let's just have a quick look here. Nothing. She was already off the road by time. So now we're heading south and we're actually going to exit Djuma. And we're going to keep an eye out for tracks. Here it's nice and muddy, but you will find that it's quite easy to find or to see impala or antelope tracks in this muddy condition, because their hooves are hardened and they're pointy. But a leopard or a lion, well, more so a leopard, their tracks are much softer, so it's a little bit more difficult to see. So the best thing we can do now is go all the way to the boundary and check for tracks here. Okay. Just first gonna have a quick look because the lions are around this area. So let's just be a little safe. Okay, you look good. Hi Jerome, you'd like to know if leopards will travel far during the day? No, especially not in this heat. But she may not have traveled right now. She would have traveled maybe just after we saw her. It's just that they overheat very, very easily, like all predators. So their means of keeping cool involves changing their behavior as opposed to a physiological response like sweating that we would get. So their change in behavior would be to seek out shady spots. And that's what she would have done, but she was scent marking as she was going along. So we could have just caught her on her patrol. But I will say that there isn't any tracks for her coming out, which is a good thing for us. So if there aren't any tracks coming out, it's unlikely that she went back up to Zoe's. And the other option would be that she went to Philemon's cut line or she went on Mendoza. Both good options. My feeling is that she was on Mendoza or has moved. Check out these lion tracks in front of us. This is from this morning. Remember this morning we had that walk by the 3 Nkuhuma lionesses? Really nice. Alright, so let's go and hopefully find the tracks that we're looking for, which are those of Shadulu. I didn't jump off at that junction there, just in case she was in the tree. I would have given her a fright. So, oops. So now I can jump off because I know that she's not there. And then we'll have a look which way she went. Remember, she also didn't have to use the road. She could also have just walked through the bush. But it is less likely, if she's on a territorial patrol, that she would have used the bush. But you never know. And she moves around in the heat quite a bit. Anyway. Let's hope that we're successful, at least with a lead in the form of tracks.
Hi, I'm Sue. I'm from South Africa and I'm the incredibly lucky winner of the Tswalu competition. Tswalu has so much to offer, but we're really looking forward to the game viewing options, as going out with a personal guide who has so much knowledge will just be exceptional. Motsi Lodge looks absolutely amazing, and we're so looking forward to spending time there. It really is out of this world. I only registered as an explorer towards the end of January, so when the email arrived stating that I was the winner, it took me totally by surprise. I'd just like to thank Wild Earth and Tswalu for this most incredible prize. It really is a dream come true.
Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
So, my dear, I do find you most attractive when you're covered in bird lice. Oh, Charles, I love it when you peck at my head and clean the bird lice off me. Let me say hello to Barry here. Hello, Barry. I'm just going to examine you for some bird lice. Charles, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. Oh, all right. I shall look for bird lice on myself then.
My name is Taylor McCurdy and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on Wild Earth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the live safari page and submit your questions below the live feed.
Hello, boy. You are a monster. And he's coming right up to us. Hello, boy. Oh, settle down. Settle down. He is very, very close. He's pushing his trunk against the car. You can feel the car moving. Hey, 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 hey. Stop that.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
Welcome back to Tswalu. So that's why we check at the dams, because literally 20 meters from one of the dams in the shade under the tree is these three little guys. Cheetah cubs. These guys are about 5 months old. So my concern right now is that we cannot see the mother. It's very, very thick in the backgrounds and she could be lying down flat. Their bellies are full. So she may or may not have gone to water and left them and then she'll come back. But certainly if they move off away from us now, we will not pursue them. We will not follow them. Because I don't know where she is at this stage, so we are just going to be sensitive. If we don't see her, then we'll also move on and leave them be. We kind of have to let nature be nature in these situations, but they're looking like they've eaten really well, which is great. And we're just hoping that she is just lying somewhere close by. But it's not unusual for her, if she's gone hunting, to feed them or to leave them, hunt and then call them to the food. But the fact that they are full-bellied and mum is not in sight, we don't know. We don't know what's happened. We don't know if the males have come around and possibly chased her. Daniel is asking the question, how far will their mother travel to get food? Normally not far from them at all. They are always with her. So right from small cubs, she moves with them. She tells them to stay. She hunts a short distance away from them. If she's not successful, she comes back and fetches them and she moves them again. So they're always almost in calling distance, I would say. If she's successful, she gives this little bird call and they'll come to her. But normally with cheetahs, not too far at all. So it's not the same as when they're really, really tiny, she'll stash them in a thicket and then go hunting for herself. But when she starts feeding them the meat, they generally are with her all the time. It is a little bit windy. The wind is picked up quite strongly, so that could also make them a little bit more nervous if there's any smells of any other animals on the wind. I see quite a few vultures in the far distance circling and landing, and that sometimes can happen with a mother on food, a cheetah in particular. The vultures can actually chase her off. If they've got enough numbers and they were on a kill and the vultures start descending and putting pressure on her, she'll take her cubs and she'll leave whatever's left of the food to the vultures. So I have seen that happen. So they are looking around. They're not looking at us. They are used to the presence of the vehicle, so they're not bothered or stressed by the vehicle. But the way that they're alert and looking does suggest that the mother is not right here, right now. Very nice little full belly there. Andrew is saying they are so cute. They are indeed. They really are in that still very, very fluffy stage with all that hair still on the back of the neck and around the face. So we know these are about 5.5 months now. For those viewers that have been with us for a long time, these were found by Moritz at one stage, and they were finding them quite regularly when they were already just a couple of days old, and she hid them in the thicket. So one of the reasons why we say we'll probably move on once we go off air if the mother is not here is because we don't want to interfere with what happens in nature. If for example, the cubs are so focused on us being here that they don't see a hyena or another predator approach, we could then potentially hamper that escape route, which we certainly wouldn't want to do. They are looking around, certainly, that she's not close by. I thought we were right here by the water, but we didn't see her drinking at the waterhole, and normally she would take them with her to go and drink at the waterhole. So 3 is about an average number. They can have up to about 6. So we are going to move on from these. Sorry to disappoint, but I do want to make sure that they get a chance to get to their mother by themselves and she can find them. We're going to move on. I'm going to send you across to Matt, who's also at another watering hole.
Welcome back to Anbjørnpinde, everybody. We're in picture, probably one of the birds we've seen the most of this summer, the European roller, sorry. Really, really pretty looking bird, and we've seen so many of them compared to previous years that I almost think they've pushed their cousins, the slightly smaller lilac-breasted rollers, out of this area completely. I've only seen them twice now since I've been back at the beginning of the year, end of the year last year, and the beginning of this year. But literally around every corner are these European rollers, and maybe they knew something that we didn't in terms of the rains that we've gotten and the insects that follow with that and everything else that they eat, that they've arrived in such numbers. But just around this watering hole, I think I've counted 3. This one not quite ready for takeoff or hasn't sussed out anything to potentially grab on its perch just yet, but amazing to see. When we first got here, there were a couple of white-backed vultures that were all around the watering hole, maybe came for a bit of a drink, and the rollers in weather like this, overcast weather like this, as opposed to Tswalu, who's struggling to eat, very quiet, compared to normal. I mean, on a day which is a little bit warmer than usual, you hear the birds are often a lot more chirpy, but when it's windy and the conditions are not favorable, it takes them a lot of energy to get all chirpy. So maybe just preserving their energy for the time being. A couple of impala around this watering hole as well, looking awfully relaxed. So I don't think those cheetah that we were searching for ended up coming here. And every other plains game that we've driven past has also been really relaxed and hasn't shown any signs of being under threat. So yeah, I think they would have moved off for the time being, those cheetah, maybe in a different direction, obviously not in this direction, with these impala being so relaxed. And they too, I think, are just enjoying the greenery that they are able to feed on, have a bit of a drink, and then carry on feeding. But those cheetah, with the favourable conditions of it being cooler, probably set off earlier than usual to find their next potential meal, that mom and her youngster. And in this long grass, we'd battle to see them. Even if they were just next to the vehicle, we really would struggle to see them. But what's quite nice about that is that they often use the roads as path of least resistance to get from one spot to another, but we also haven't had any luck with them just yet. But we'll keep searching. I think myself and Simon will keep searching in this area. Got a good chance of seeing a couple of elephants as well. They too were around this neck of the woods this morning when we were out and about. But I'll ask Simon to pan across to this watering hole just next door to us, because about a week ago this was bone dry and has filled up significantly, so much so that there are even a couple of hippo in there. I've never seen a crocodile in there, but there are a couple of hippo in there at the moment, a couple of egrets wading about, and I'm sure with all this water we're going to get some very interesting birds following suit as well. We've spoken about black kukels in the past before. I'm not sure for those avid couch twitchers at home if you've managed to tick that off just yet on these safaris, but we're going to see if we can't find some of the more interesting birds as well this afternoon. But we're going to head back across to Tswalu to see what they found.
So we popped onto the other side of the dam and we found this beautiful gentleman, a nice roan bull. So very, very pretty. He was also in the shade, but he's no longer in the shade because he's a bit suspicious of our presence. So he moved off a bit. But those beautiful black and white markings on the face, and then the curving back horns, that's adult size, so the second largest of the antelope. But I think probably the longest ears relative to anybody else, if you look at how long, ridiculously long almost, those ears are. So they'd be able to handle much hotter temperatures by being animals that live in arid environments. They've got that white around the face reduces the glare, or the white reflects the light, and then the back will reduce the glare. These obviously just lots of flies. We get these little louse flies, which are biting flies, which does tend to make them do a bit of a hop, skip and a jump every now and again and get them moving pretty quickly. Okay, wow. He's moved into a little bit of shade of that little tree, but not much. So he'd be predominantly a browser. He's just... I don't know if he's been to the waterhole or if he's on his way to the waterhole, but he's close enough. He's still deciding, so he might be a little bit weary, and he may or may not even smell or see the presence of those cheetah. So he doesn't really have to worry about cheetah. He's quite large. He shouldn't be too worried about cheetah, especially a female cheetah. He's way too big for her. So just using the opportunity to rechew the cud there. Safari Lovers asked a very interesting question. What makes antelope horns different in antelope in different species? I don't actually know if it's just sort of a gene that makes them grow in a certain way, because I'm going to go forward. There's another little gentleman lying under the tree for you, which has also got incredibly impressive horns. Is the Gemsbok. And then you can see even sort of different horns there. So still showing you it's quite hot. He's also lying in the shade. So genetically, as the species goes, that would be sort of dictating the horn shape, because all roan have the same horn shape, and so do all Gemsbok have the same shape. So I would say it's a genetic marker that gives them the shape of the horns. But over time, you probably find it would be what would suit them. I mean, you compare that to the kudu that's got incredibly spiral horned. They're totally different. They're like a corkscrew shape. And they all use them for different things. I mean, the Gemsbok will mainly be for fighting and defending themselves. They'll use those horns in a sweeping motion to defend themselves from lions. Kudu will often fight with those corkscrew-shaped horns, and they can get themselves hooked up to the point where maybe both candidates land up so exhausted they can't pull themselves apart and maybe die as a result of that. They also sometimes, kudu in particular, will use their horns to hook down higher branches so that they can feed. But you actually look, if we go to the roan and we zoom in as much as possible on the camera, you actually notice that the horns have got lots of little ridges. So those ridges on the horns are sort of seasonal growth rings, as it were. But when they're fighting, if they're fighting and they're bending down, and the other animals or rivals' horns go on that, it's like a sort of like a grater. It slows the horns down. So we're going to send you across to Tristan, see what else we can find.
Well, we've managed to find ourselves a shikra. I haven't seen a shikra in quite some time of late. There's also franklins that have just gone crazy next to us. They're alarm calling quite heavily. Anyway, these little birds of prey are fairly common here. They're just easily overlooked because of their size. This is a small little bird. It's only probably about 20 centimeters. But we know it's a shikra. The easiest way is just that cherry red eye. They've got this amazing bright red colored eye. It's something that is diagnostic to them. And like I say, they often are around. They don't sit as much out in the open like this all the time. Most of the time they're kind of in the tree a little bit, closer to where there's a lot more foliage, where they can just kind of hide behind it, but often perching like this and then flying out and hunting little birds and geckos and lizards and the likes. Just listening carefully at these franklins. It was interesting, this morning we also had a franklin that also went crazy, and it was in the tree and we looked around but we didn't see anything. Now sometimes they get spooked by snakes or even things like slender mongoose, but it's always worth listening to them, because sometimes it can be something like a leopard as well. And where we are right now is an area where Tingana often is. I know a lot of you are desperate for an update on Tingana, and the reality is there isn't an update on Tingana. Male leopards, when we have these kind of conditions, often are seen less, and that is because they are not as inclined to spend time up in trees as the females are. If you think how many of the sightings we've had have been leopards up trees, or where we've spotted them is them being up in trees, it's quite a high proportion. And so males don't really spend time in trees like that just resting. They'll prefer to be on the ground. Especially an older male like Tingana, it's a lot of hard work for him to drag his weight and his bulk up a tree. And like this bird, it's not easy for him to get up there. So you'll find that they're down a lot more, and it's why the kind of sightings of the male leopards is often less comparative to females when we've had a lot of rain and the grass is very long. So hopefully we'll kind of pick him up at some point. The tracks that I had the other day, I was pretty sure I was following were his. And they went into Torchwood, which would be about right. He moves around this area. Although Mulawati is also kind of roaming around these days all over the place. I wonder if the shikra is not going to fly off. It's been very accommodating. We've been sitting here for quite some time, and it has just been kind of watching out, looking. I suppose it's still very, very warm, and so for a little bird of prey like this, it makes sense just to sit and enjoy a bit of shade and watch from there. And if something comes past that it can potentially hunt, well, then it will take off. But otherwise, the object would probably be to try and stay fairly cool. You can see when it turns its back how difficult it can be to see. So I wish I could give us a better sense of scale. But maybe if you just use the leaf itself. This is a little apple leaf, and they don't get very big at all. So you can see that bird is kind of one of those apple leaves is almost the same size as it. Grace, you say there's a new bird for you? That's good. I'm glad. That's always nice when we have you guys that keep lists about birds that you've seen on the show. I would actually wonder who's got the highest number of birds. There's a lot of you that have been keeping lists for many, many years with Wild Earth. So it'd be interesting to know who's got the most and what the kind of tally is of all the birds that we've actually seen over. Those lists would be big now because we have so many different locations. Before, it was just Djuma, but if you had to add them all up between, Anbion Pinda, Anbion Ngala, Tswalu, Kalahari, and then obviously even the Mara, at one point you'll be quite a serious amount of bird species that we've had. But I'm surprised that this one is a new one because, like I say, we do see them. We used to have a nesting pair on Vulture's Nest, and to be fair, since I've been back, I haven't even driven Vulture's Nest. It's so wet in that area. That's maybe why we haven't spent a lot of time in areas where we see them a lot. When the light is on them like that, you can kind of get a sense for that eye. Unfortunately, it's when you look through binoculars, it becomes very, very prominent to see this big cherry red eye. But sometimes far away, it just looks quite dark. But when the light catches it, it's that red is the most intense, bright color you can think of. Good. We're going to leave our little shikra. We're going to carry on and go and see if we can find something else lurking about in a tree, hopefully with spots.
It's no secret that nature can heal. Some of our Wild Earth viewers are finding solace in the outdoors close to their homes during lockdown.
This is how I keep myself busy during lockdown. Beautiful little jumping spot.
I love walking in the open spaces near my home. Provides a moment of peace in a crazy world.
This is my fire escape with some of the birds I get to see. That's what it's like in New York City during lockdown.
Being in nature helps me to cope with the challenges of life and helps me to be humble and grateful.
It's magical watching everything turn into a winter wonderland as the snow softly falls.
Been doing lots of walking, dog walking, outside at parks.
This is my Ridgeback Drake. Our little slice of paradise is a provincial park called Hopewell Ross.
Connecting with nature is critical to stay positive during these tough times. Wild Earth encourages you all to find time to escape to nature.
We stopped as the dusk was settling and there was a zebra mare underneath the bush. She was lying down. We didn't really know what was happening, and then we saw it.
Everybody, there's a zebra giving birth there. There's a zebra giving birth. This is a zebra giving birth. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, you clever mare. Well done. It's born, everyone. It's born and it's alive and it looks fine.
This was, of course, an unusual sighting. Normally, herbivores like impala and wildebeest and zebra will give birth during the middle of the day. This is when their predators like lions and hyenas are fast asleep. But as this little foal took its first steps, the dying embers of the day had just gone over the western horizon, and it was just the time that the hyenas and lions were starting to get active and go out foraging. This is why we didn't light up the sighting, of course. It may have compromised the zebra's eyes and at the same time attracted those hyenas and lions to the activity.
My name is Lauren and I'm currently working in Djuma Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. I I love answering your questions during the live safaris. It's my favorite part. It feels like you're on the vehicle with me and I'm able to teach you exactly what you want to know. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, you must go to the live safari page and ask your question below the live feed.
So we have found Mum. She's not too far from them at all. She has made them a kill that looks like what we can determine. The head on the left-hand side looks like a springbuck, but a relatively young springbuck. We can't see any horns, but we are seeing the sort of white and sort of the face and the ear on the left-hand side. So the little guys are not that far away from where she is. They're only about 50 meters. We'll show you the tree that they're hiding under there, and that's pretty much where they were. I don't know if you can or can't see them there, but if one of them calls their little sort of bird-like chirp, or she calls them, they'll come running to her. So we've given them space to be able to do that. We're not blocking their path, and we'll sit with the mother and allow the cubs to come back to her. But at least we don't see any vultures, so it wasn't the vultures that chased them off the food. I'm not too sure what chased the cubs to being under the other tree, but they'll call, and I'm sure she'll call them back. So there doesn't look like there's that much meat left on the carcass, which generally is quite strange for cheetah. Normally when they've finished what they've eaten and they're no longer eating, they'll get up and they'll move away from that carcass, because that carcass will attract attention from vultures or hyenas, other predators. Maybe she feels confident that there's no other predators around, which is why she's sticking around, and maybe will sort of nibble at what's left. But there certainly isn't that much left. There's a couple of innards and that which generally they don't choose to eat. They often move the stomach, they'll move the intestines, and not really worry about eating that. They'll eat all the soft organs first. She has done well. She has provided for her children. So springbuck is pretty much in their size range, springbuck and impala. For a female cheetah, the males are capable of taking slightly larger prey. So we're going to stick with her and wait for the cubs to come back, but we're going to send you in the meantime across to Pinda.
Welcome back, everybody, to And Beyond Pinda, and look at what myself and Simon have managed to find. We looked for them all afternoon, and then I must be honest, I threw in the towel thinking that we wouldn't be able to find them and we'd carry on to another area where we might find other cheetah. But on the road to greet us on our way out was this cheetah mom and her cub, and this cub is acting rather strange. You can see it slunkering away there. Simon's just let me know that there's a zebra behind us on the road making its way towards us. Mom is also looking directly at it, but the youngster is quite unsure of itself, doesn't know if it should stay, if it should go, but just looking at its mom is quite relaxed. So have a look, it's going to go straight back to its mom just for that little bit of reassurance. But mom now too, also not sticking around for the rest of that show. And from a distance we both said we're not quite sure what is going on here, or when we first arrived, because they're quite far away and we didn't know if it was all dried up dung or what it was. But on closer inspection there was a couple of tail flicks and we knew it was something of interest for us. Have a look at that body language. They keep peering back as if they've seen another predator or a threat. Obviously a fully grown adult zebra poses quite a threat to them, these two particularly, so she's not going to stick around and risk getting injured. She'd rather get herself and her youngster to safety elsewhere. And like we said earlier, walking along the path of least resistance, looks like she's going to flop straight back down there. What an unbelievable setting. Mountains in the background, these two, I think, just watching the passers-by behind us. and amazing to see. But now the white of that belly sticks out considerably as she lies down. But the youngster, on the other hand, who's now walking away from us, is really well camouflaged along the road. Still super unsure of himself. I love that little white tip of their tail. Now coming back to mom for a little bit more reassurance. Could have chosen to lie down anywhere, but chose to lie down on mom, and mom wasn't quite happy with that, so battered it with its paw. Have a look at that little face now, lying flat on the ground looking at us. And that tail that keeps on flicking and the ears that keep on twitching, that's probably because of those little biting flies, which can be a huge annoyance for them. But they've got the most piercing eyes, these cheetah, those really, really amber colored eyes. And this particular mom has almost orange eyes. But amazing to see her now lying out in the open and not in long grass. You're able to see those claws that they use as extra traction. I'm sure you saw those earlier on with Deirdre at Tswalu, but to see those claws that they use to get some extra grip when they're running at those high speeds. Every so often that flick of the tail, that tapered tail that acts as a bit of a rudder when they're running at the high speeds as well. And just every last detail of cheetah is just built for speed. If Tristan's lucky enough to find one of the leopards that he's searching for this afternoon, you'll see they've got those really, really long whiskers, as opposed to cheetah that you're having a look at here, really, really short whiskers. So every last feature of them is just built for speed. But as they are now, you can see mom's got a little bit of a bulge in her belly. I wouldn't be surprised if they caught something sometime during the day. So you're asking what it means if they pull their tail up. If what you're asking now as that youngster lies down there and flicks its tail every so often, that's purely because of flies. They can be quite irritating, and that's just to help get rid of things like flies that might be biting them in areas that they otherwise can't get to. The ear twitches are the same thing. They're just trying to get rid of them. You can see it's quite a windy afternoon, and on a road where they are, as opposed to lying in long grass, they can't really see anything, but lying on a road they can see a distance both ways. If other potential threats to them, maybe other cheetah, other lions, maybe using the cool of the afternoon to get a little bit more active earlier on, are coming towards them, they are then able to get away in time. That zebra just may be coming closer behind us, not that I could see it, but just coming closer to make sure that these two were of no threat to them. They moved off a little, so the zebra knew it was alright, and everything's returned back to normal. That youngster lying flat on the ground now. And with full bellies, they obviously can't run at those high speeds that they are otherwise capable of running at. Well, they probably could get to those high speeds, but they would be reluctant to. And on the particular road that we're on, it is quite a busy road, so if you do find other man-made objects entering your screen, please do not be surprised. Luckily we are parked here, and they are on a little bit of a blind rise, so I'll be the first to stop any speeding motorists on this road. I can't get over how cute that little youngster is with its face flat on the ground. But yeah, myself and Simon are going to spend a little bit of time with these two and see what they get up to. We're going to head across to Pridelands this afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Eco Training Pridelands this afternoon on a beautiful 33 degrees Celsius day, 92 degrees Fahrenheit. Hello, everybody. My name is Steve Fogger. We're joined once again by Johan on this wonderful Sunday. We hope you are enjoying yourselves. It seems to be a very busy afternoon cat-wise. We are trying to provide you with something of that sort, but what we had there on shot a moment before was a little group of yellow-fronted canaries that have come down onto sort of the low-hanging branches of a knobthorn and are busy feeding off of the inflorescence from the blue guinea grass or buffalo grass or Panica maximum, scientific name, that is waving in the wind. So very, very cool to see. Being seed eaters, you often see them on the floor feeding on the seeds, but obviously many of these grasses haven't dropped seeds, so the birds have to come up with a technique of feeding on them, and it's so wonderful to see. You can actually see in the foreground there's a whole lot of feathertop chloris, the sort of whiter sort of version, and then it goes into the underneath the bush area where that much greener grass, the Panica maximum, just takes over. Now, the Panica maximum is a grass that likes semi-shade. So you go from a sunlit area to an area with semi-shade and you get different species. So it's kind of the way it works. The Panica maximum is a climax grass with a forage score of 10 out of 10. Wonderful for making little bracelets out of, and beautiful seeds. The birds absolutely love them, as do I. I feed on them quite regularly. Got a few of them next to us here that are still in flower. So a lot of them have actually gone into flower. They've seeded and then they've gone back into flower again, which is quite interesting because we've had so much rain this year. As we've all heard the old adage, make hay while the sun shines. Well, grasses make seeds while the sun shines. They just want to produce. It is their purpose. And, well, that is why many of the birds will breed again, because the food increases. The insects will breed again, the birds will breed again, and so the cycle continues. So when it is abundant, it is extremely abundant. Very, very blessed. So didn't expect them to hang around as long as they have, but how wonderful. It's the little females we can mainly see there at the moment. The male, I think, is the lowest one at the bottom. His yellow is not as bright right now. I can just hear the calling of a chin spot battus. Okay, well, we're going to do a spot of birding on this wonderful Sunday afternoon, taking it nice and easy, and we're going to send you all the way over to and beyond Pinda.
Welcome back, everybody. It was one of those vehicles in question that we had now pass us, and obviously lying in the middle of the road, there was no other place for them to cross, so they got up and got out of their way, but have returned to the road. And now you can see Mum's actually given us a little bit of cold shoulder. She's facing the other way, and not a bad thing for her to do. She knows there's zebra behind her, and the zebra will make a song and dance if anything else comes into the picture. The youngster, being the curious self that it is, also with that really fat belly, just keeps gazing over at the zebra. And I say fat belly because it looked like it had a little pot belly. And it's both of them have their mouths open, panting, so just trying to help digest that food. So between this morning and now, they've managed to catch something and have fed and are now lying out in the open, resting those full bellies off, which is incredible. And this mom has done phenomenally well to raise this youngster to the age that it has, especially seeing as though it is so cute. Watch out, it will just disappear now in this long grass. If it does carry on going, we are going to lose sight of it completely. I mean, the grass is at least twice its height, which makes finding animals very, very tricky for us. But luckily, lying where they were, a different story this afternoon. Sorry, just had to stop another vehicle behind us. Sitting quietly, the only birds that we've heard, just talking about having a birding afternoon, is the rattling testicular, which without fail, sunshine, snow, rain, you name it, you'll still hear calling. Mum's just had a little bit of a rollover, back scratch and a rollover. The youngster, who you can see, I say youngster, it's still got that really fluffy hair on the back of its neck that it's growing out of. It's incredibly curious. They just throw themselves at the ground and gave a bit of a huff now as it did that. Keeps just watching those zebra behind us. A couple of barn swallows also flying in and amongst the cheetah too. Another one of those European railers at the back. Going to see if anything changes here this afternoon with this cheetah mother and her youngster, but we're going to head off to Pridelands.
Hello everybody, welcome back. We are here again on we're checking out our southwestern side of Pridelands, the area we haven't been in yet, and we're very blessed to know that we've got good signal here. And what we're seeing up on the tree is a nice accumulation of barn swallows, also known as European swallows. And this time of year you'll start getting them accumulating on telephone poles or in trees as they start getting ready for their migration all the way back. They generally arrive in South Africa sort of September, but mostly October, early November. They feed exclusively on flying insects, and they'll be heading back up north to be breeding again later on in the season, later on in the European summer. But they spend the winter, or the European winter, here. But as they start accumulating in the trees like this, it's sort of getting to that time when they're starting to get ready to migrate, and you'll notice them doing a lot of preening, a lot of feather cleaning, a lot of checking as the aeroplane flies over. It's important to service aeroplanes regularly if you plan on getting anywhere. Just like your vehicle, if you want to be going long distance, you have to make sure that not only have you checked the oil and the water, but you've serviced the car to maximize performance. These birds have got a long way to fly. They will feed along the way, but many migratory birds will increase their body mass by almost 50%. Goodness me, can you imagine? 50% before departing. So it's basically fueling themselves up, and that is on enormous amounts of insects. But then by preening and cleaning and sorting out all of the, all of the feathers, means they can maximize performance. Just like on your vehicle, if your wheel alignment is slightly out or your tire treads are not great, it influences the petrol consumption or fuel consumption. If you have weird things hanging off the car, you mess with the aerodynamics, you're going to drag the car behind. So these birds, that's what they're doing. They're getting everything ready and prepared, and then suddenly, all of a sudden, they're gone. So a lot of it's got to do with temperatures, a lot of it's got to do with daylight hours changing. But I've no doubt that in times when we've had lots of rain, you can get a lot more birds remaining a bit longer, because it's also the food that they're looking for, you know. They're looking to make sure they maximize their body weight, their fat index, they get all of the nutrients they require before departing. And so many of them can stay a bit later. So we'll see how long these migratory birds stick around, and we'll be making note of it. But we're going to carry on a little birding bumble and send you over this time to Tswalu Kalahari.
So here's somebody else that's stocking up on energy, but not necessarily for any long distance trips, just for daily survival. So, she said, that's about the most movement we've seen. So she's very uncomfortably full, and also very hot. So you can see sort of the heavy panting, mouth open. Just like lions, they also have no natural sweat glands. So panting is one of the ways of reducing heat. And that nice little full belly, she's definitely stocked up, and she's made, unfortunately, no effort to call the cubs whatsoever, and they've made no effort to call her. So they're still under their little tree, and she's still here under hers. It's a very unusual situation for me. I haven't seen before where cubs are that separated from the mother, but a direct line of sight, they can't actually see her. There's literally only about 4 bushes in the way, but they can't see her even when they're looking. If they sit up and they look, they can't actually see her unless one of them ventures out into the open, which instinct is telling them not to. There, she's getting up now, so maybe we'll see some movement, or she's just going to adjust position and lie down somewhere else. She's got an armoured ground cricket on her backside. He was hitching a ride. Whew. Excuse her, but she just let off a stink. We just smelt a very stinky smell from her as she got up there. We are downwind of her. So we've had another look at the carcass, and there seems to be a little bit of meat left, but not too much. But maybe there's enough there that once she's digested what she's got, she thinks there's an opportunity. So there might be a little bit around the shoulders, but you can see the ribs sticking up there. So cheetahs don't have the strongest teeth. So when you find a carcass later on, you can have a look at how well the ribs have been eaten. And if they've just kind of been nibbled around the edges, then it doesn't. It shows you it's definitely not a lion or a leopard. With something as small as a springbok, lion and leopard would basically eat all of that. They wouldn't even leave much of a trace. Sometimes the only thing that's left is the 4 hooves and the horns, if anything. But the cheetahs will often start feeding around the rump area. So there's one of the cubs. There's 2 of them. So they'll start feeding around the rump area, around the hip area, and at the stomach to get to the organs. And then often, depending on whether they're disturbed by predators or not, sometimes just abandon sort of the legs and some of the meat around the rib cage. So we're still going to wait here with them to see if there's any sign of them reuniting. We're going to send you across to Tristan.
Very cool to have spotty cats this afternoon, especially when they're full and there's cubs around. We're watching our green shank again at Chitwa, and just love coming here and watching these guys fish. Unfortunately, the time that they're going to have to do this is slowly but surely going to run out. You can see the overflow of water is becoming less and less. It's not nearly as much as it was 2 days ago. It's starting to kind of trickle in places. There are 2 big kind of areas where there's a lot coming off, but for the most part it has slowed right down for now. And it means that eventually it's going to become, there's no fish that are going to be pushed over this ledge, and therefore a lot harder for the green shank and various other birds that have been hunting here to make use of what's coming out. Oh, there we go. Just love how they kind of just sit here and eventually get it right. And the hunting styles of the different birds that have been here has been fascinating to watch, between the kind of, like I say, green-backed herons and then these guys. There's even the grey heron was here for a while. They just have a completely different take on things. The other thing that I saw this morning, actually very interesting, was when I was driving here, that flew over, was a giant kingfisher. I haven't seen a giant kingfisher at Chitwa Dam in ages, but there was one this morning just flying kind of over the dam. So maybe we'll have to have a look out for one of those as well. Such a beautiful bird, that big kind of body and the colours that they have on them. I'm also interested to see if there's still another green shank around, because 2 days ago when I drove past here, now the green shanks, well, we've only ever seen kind of one hanging about, but kind of 2 days ago I drove past and there was one chasing the other one absolutely everywhere, and it was almost like they were getting ready to mate. And so I thought maybe, just maybe, it would be really cool if they did nest here. There's a little bank that they were sitting on, and there was one that was kind of sitting there and the other one was sort of milling about. But I don't see the second green shank today. For some reason it's moved off. Maybe it was just a competitor and got chased away. I don't know, maybe that was the behavior that I was seeing. I thought it would have been very cool if we managed to see some sort of interaction between kind of two of them and see whether or not they would potentially pair off. It's being far more patient today than it was the other day when the heron was here. The other day it was running around everywhere trying to find food, but today it's kind of sitting in wait, and it reminds me almost of kind of fly fishermen that employ a technique called check nymphing or dead drift nymphing, where they sit on the edge of the flow and kind of wait for takes. In this case, they're just waiting for the fish to come past before they grab it. It's interesting how shallow it is. I mean, you can see the bird's toes are basically just underwater. The rest is exposed. So these poor fish, once they land, must get kind of turned sideways, and that glint must be what they're looking for rather than anything else. So it looks like it's grabbing very small things at the moment. I don't know if there's maybe tiny little tadpoles as well that are being pulled over in this flow. It's possible. All right, I'm going to carry on though. We'll leave our green shank to its business. We'll go and see what else is on Chitwa. Oh, there we go. I've got a fish now. And off it goes. In the meantime, let's send you across to Tswalu and see if those cubs have rejoined their mom.
That's all she's done. She pretty much got up. She sat there in the nice little breeze, cool breeze for a second, and then flopped back down again. That's what happens when your belly is full and there's very little space for breathing. It results in some heavy panting. She hasn't called the cubs yet. We thought she was going to call the cubs because she sat up and she was looking in that direction, but there's been no response. She hasn't called. Maybe she's just getting some me time. It is unusual for me to see cheetah this far separated from cubs for this length of time. But maybe she's confident that where she's left them, they'll be fine. It's almost like the tail always has a life of its own. It just sort of flicks up and down. Mackie is asking the question if cheetahs purr like domestic cats. They do indeed. It's actually amazing to hear them if you're relatively close by and a cheetah is content. Sometimes you can actually hear them purring, but you need to be within sort of 2 to 3 meters to actually hear them clearly. And I have heard it here as well. So if they're content and they're happy, you do sometimes hear them purring, even amongst them like a coalition of males. If one of them starts purring, the others start purring as well, and they're content. They don't necessarily have the same process in their throat, sort of known as a Howardian apparatus. If I've said that correctly, it's quite a mouthful, that the lions have in order to roar. So cheetahs don't necessarily roar, they just have sort of a loud little bird-like chirp, and purring is their thing, but lions, funnily enough, don't purr. So I think Trish was talking about how you tell the differences between lions, and you'd look at the face and the spots on the face. But with cheetah, one of the ways that you can tell the individuals apart is literally by looking at the tail, and where the spots and the stripes, sort of the black and the white, is on the tail. You can have a look at that, and then also they would have spots different to each individual as well, and you'd look for a sort of a set area on the cheetah that would be recognizable, the spots either on sort of one shoulder or one rump area. Sometimes you can make a bit of a pattern, and then that would be how you would know the individuals. But it's always challenging. We're fortunate enough, we view them regularly enough, we know who they are. But yeah, if you were just coming from a different place, you wouldn't necessarily know one from the other. They'd all look similar. It's not always the easiest profile to look for. It's that sort of little teddy bear head sticking up there. So we're still going to stick with her to see, hopefully find the reunion. We're going to send you across to Tristan.
We've got one of Africa's grumpiest looking animals. They don't mean to look this way, but they just are. You can see he's been having a little wallow in Chitwa. He's got water dripping off his chin and his kind of tummy. He's also looking quite sort of grumpy at the fact that we disturbed his swim. Not that we kind of did anything to get him out of the water, but he's been lying up in there and has decided that he doesn't want to be in the water if we're around. Maybe he'll go back again. He's been hanging around Chitwa Dam for the last few days. I know he was here yesterday, he was here the day before, and the day before that too. Now, a buffalo bull like this is going to be a prime target for any pride of lions. So if the things like, or if Inkahumas or Telematis are to come across a buffalo like this is the best case scenario for them. Lone buffalo bulls, while they are strong and temperamental, pose much less of a threat than a herd. They don't have to worry about others getting involved. And that's possibly why you're seeing that he's a little on the grumpy side. Does he have a little scar on his back end there? Let's have a look quickly. Does he? He's got quite a big scar on both flanks. So I wonder if he wasn't grabbed at some point, but they very weird kind of cuts. Normally when they have wounds from lions grabbing them on the back, you find multiple claw marks, not just one straight line coming down the back like that. But you can see that back right leg is still a little bit sore and stiff. The way he's walking is not that comfortable. Oh, an oxpecker just pooed on his face. Sorry, boy. You can see he's got big white poo on his face. That was from an oxpecker that was in his ear, trying to feed, and has defecated on him. That's not very pleasant at all. He's definitely walking with a little bit of a limp. I'd imagine, like I said, it's from that wound. It must have been a big one at some point. It's closed up nicely now, though. There doesn't seem to be too much in the way of kind of external damage anymore, but maybe internally there's still something, and it still feels a little bit on the sore side, because he's definitely got a weird kind of walk with that back right leg. It doesn't sort of move as well as it should. Now you might see a little fence post there. That's just the edge of Chitwa camp. So they have a fence around the camp to stop particularly elephants and these guys from getting in. You can imagine it's not an animal you want between the rooms. These guys can be very, very dangerous, particularly at night, because you can't see them very easily at all. You can also see he's got a big wound on his left shoulder. That's not related to hunting. That's from probably filaria flies. They lay their eggs, it causes huge amounts of itching, and they scratch and then they make it raw, and then what happens is the oxpeckers come and peck at that shoulder area or at that wound, because they are after the blood, and they eventually open the wound more and more and more. And so while they're beneficial from removing ticks at some point, they eventually become a pest when they have wounds like this, because of the damage that they do. All right, our buffalo bull doesn't really want anything to do with us anymore. He's walking off, so we're going to carry on. Meantime, let's send you across to and beyond Pinder.
Welcome back, everyone. There are a couple of zebra who have just walked past us and have noticed these cheetah. Mom couldn't be bothered, but the youngster is caught between twitching, watching these swallows fly past, and just keeping tabs on the zebra who have now run away. But, yeah, I heard in my ear from our guys at SC freaking out. They were doing exactly that. This little one, not quite sure of what to do. But now with the vehicle coming the other way, they're encouraging the zebra to come back towards us, and they're still watching quite intently as to what's going on here with these two that are lying down. It'll be interesting to see if that cheetah does get up and move. I don't think it will, because Mom's quite relaxed and just watching. Although this vehicle will now, just encourage those zebra further away from us and them, which is not a bad idea, because like you've seen in the past, zebra are not afraid to chase cheetah around. Maybe with an older, more experienced cheetah mom, she knows not to waste her time with adult zebra. But these two, or particularly the younger one, very, very wary of the zebra. Just watching them as they make their way away. Can hear a couple of crested barbets calling in the distance. But this youngster, maybe if around a year old, just comparing its size to its mom, quite a bit smaller still got that long fluffy hair at the back of its neck like we spoke about earlier. And invaluable life lessons these, because one day when it's on its own, it's going to have to, just gauge situations like that one before it makes its move and decide what's best for it in terms of running away or staying or just being wiser and walking away from a situation. But those zebras, walking away from us pose no threat. Going to spend a little bit more time here, see if anything changes.
Do you dream of traveling to a far-flung wilderness location where life continues as normal? A place where you can escape to nature and breathe. If you become a Wild Earth explorer, then this could soon become a reality. Subscribe today and stand a chance to win regular travel prizes. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Converging game path will invariably lead you to a water source, but treat all water as suspect. One of my favorite ways of purifying water is to filter out the particulates. And by just filtering it through your sock, you can clear out most of those. You can put water into a snail shell and you can boil it over a fire or using a chemical like chlorine or colloidal silver.
My name is Steve, and one of my favorite things at Wild Earth is getting questions from you. The type of questions that I really like are those ones that really help us to unpack and understand and really integrate the ecological knowledge and fully appreciate the importance that animals such as these Cape buffalo bring to the ecosystem. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, you're going to have to register on the website. But once registered, just head on over to the live safari page and enter your question under the live feed.
Guys, just watch what's happening. See, watch the elephants, watch the lions. See, the first ones to run are the cubs. Can you see them? They are right here. I'm not sure how scared you were, but I was quite nervous. But absolutely incredible.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
Hi, I'm Kyle, and I come to you live every day here from Tswalu Kalahari in South Africa. My favorite bird has to be the social weaver. The enormous nest that they create, their survival tactics to inhabit these harsh and unforgiving environments, and as well as their complex social arrangements is truly remarkable. And the interconnectedness with the ecosystem shows us that we are too.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
We have made our way here to Kara. I was about to say a friend of mine's name. It sounds very similar. And it's stunning. She's making an absolute meal of her impala. But the most curious thing, curious Kara. The most curious thing about her right now is that impala, she's kind of stashed it into the hollow in that tree, which is very clever. I mean, considering if it was intentional, it was very clever, because every time she drops a bone or anything like that, it falls into the tree. At least it makes it a little less recognizable as a dead impala in this. It's a little bit easier to watch, but if she does pick it out, do be warned, because it doesn't smell very pleasant, so I can imagine that it doesn't look very pleasant. In fact, it smells pretty rancid. She's making very good work of getting meat off the legs, which I must say that a lot of the time when we see leopards, listen to that. Oh, when we see leopards with impala kills, oftentimes they'll leave the legs, especially towards the hoof, where you're not going to get much at all. But she's making great work of those parts. I'm glad to see her eating. I think if we had arrived any earlier, she would have been quite flat cat. And I think we've come at just the perfect time. The sun is starting to set. The light is getting really nice and soft. And starting to cool down. It must be quite a young impala that she's got in order to crush the bone like that. Or in order to store it in that hole in the tree. So Kara is about 2 years old now, and she's obviously carving out a nice bit of territory for her. That includes this section of buffelshoek, so that's really nice. Maybe we can expect to see her more often. It's an interesting time in her life. Interesting time of her life when she's carving out this territory for herself and settling in. She's giving us a great show, great display of exactly what her 30 teeth can do. I'm very curious to see what's actually in that hole. Obviously, the impala is there. Oh, look at that. But all I can see is a squashed up bit. I'm actually just going to sit and let us enjoy the sounds. I mean, I know it's not, some sort of serene sound or anything like that, but I love when we see something and can hear it at the same time instead of just listening when you're looking at something else like birds and things like that. And we don't get to hear the call or them making the call. So let's enjoy. Enjoy that Kara gets to have a feast today. Oh no. She looked like she was really enjoying that bone. Now that looked intentional. Come on, girl. She's just cleaning out her bucket there. Oof. There we go. So I told you it will look a little bit gruesome. And it certainly does. Oh no. She's dropped the whole thing. There she comes. There she comes. carefully. Make sure there's no scavengers around there, but there aren't any as far as we saw. No hyenas, no other leopards. She's so careful. Look at that. Oh, that's beautiful. Come on, girl, go get your meal. Maybe she's had enough. I mean, like I said, it was pretty smelly, but I think she should go get it. Hi, Daniel. You'd like to know if there's parts of a kill a leopard won't eat? There are definitely parts that they won't eat. For example, the hooves. I used to think the horns until I saw Tlalamba swallow a little Impala ram's horn, but it was a little horn. Then also skull, teeth, fur. They won't eat those things. You can see she's got a nice stick across her face. So we're going to try and move at some point to get us a better view. Just not right now because things are a little bit unstable here. So we're just going to wait a little bit. And there she goes. Still looking, but cleaning what James once called murder mittens. Anyway, I'm now going to send you over to Tswalu, and we're going to try reposition.
So she's calling them. She started a little chirp, and then it's like a... There we go, she's calling. They've seen her. They've started to approach the little cubs, so hopefully if she stays there, we'll see the reunion. They're walking slow. There they come. There they come. Morgan and I were starting to think she might actually be a poor mother, but we finished our sentence and she sat up and started calling, so here they all come. There we go. Now they all get a groom and a lick of reassurance. You can see, sure, look at that little fat belly. Another sort of grooming and licking. Yay! She's rearranged his hair into a little bit of a mohawk there. He's got something stuck on his face. I'm not 100% sure what that is. It looks like a one of the grass seeds. There's some grass seeds that are like little burrs that stick quite a bit. That looks like what he's got there stuck on his almost eyebrow. Apparently all of you are happy about the reunion. I am too. It's is always disconcerting to see when they're not with their mother, but I'm glad that she was close by and we were able to show that to you. And they're just loving each other at the moment. So that grooming is a very, very important thing for them. That's their bonding, but that's also if they've been feeding and there's blood or anything across the faces, that's also just keeping them nice and clean. So we've had sort of partial cloud cover come in, so at least the temperature is dropping when the clouds come over. So much nicer for them. I think she's most likely going to, once she's gathered them now, potentially move to go and drink water herself and then take them away from this area. It doesn't look like they're too interested in finishing anything that's left on that kill. They'll just leave it to the jackals and the vultures. Be interesting to see if she manages to get that grass off his face. That'll require a little bit of attention. Alex, who is 5 years old, is asking the question, do cheetahs climb trees? So yes, they do, but not as easily as a leopard. Their claws are not adapted to come in and out the sheath to climb the tree, but cheetah cubs will learn to climb trees, and adults will go up trees, generally something with an easier angle for them to get up, and they will go quite high up in the trees. We know the males here climb up on top of the sociable weaver's nests and sometimes scent mark on top. Cheetah cubs more often than adults, up and down the trees, and sometimes the females will go up in if it's a vantage point, if they can use it as a vantage point. I haven't seen her climb trees too much, but the cubs certainly, if they're playing, they will climb up and down the trees, and I have seen the males do it a lot more regularly. But they don't, they like to have a tree that's at an angle so that they can climb up and climb down easily. Something with a straight up trunk is a little bit more difficult, and they tend to avoid those types of trees. They don't have grip, sort of like those locking wrists, almost like a leopard does, to gracefully come down a tree. So any children under the age of 18 are welcome to register to ask questions on Kids Questions at wildearth.com, and then hopefully we can answer those questions for you. We can send you across to Ngala that would like to say hello.
Like that. Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to And Beyond Ngala, where it's been a tricky afternoon to try and find these lions. They've had a really busy afternoon. In fact, they had an interaction with some long-distance family members have chased them off and now made their way all the way here into a little pan where they had a drink. We are quickly going to head over to Trish.
She is relaxing now, looking beautiful, posing for us. And the sun is doing all sorts of favors for her. Not that she needs it. She doesn't need great lighting. She's such a stunner. There's a bit of a tongue hanging out. An ode to Hukumuri. But I think she really does look like her mother, Shidulu. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Kara, although we did spend a lot of time with her recently, actually, we saw her a couple days back, and then Tristan had her. So you would all be Kara experts now. So I'm sure you know that her parents are Shidulu and Hukumuri. She's around 2 years old. Just listen to the peace. It's so quiet. There's a few buzzings and stridulating of insects happening close by. But other than that, quiet. No other vehicles around. A beautiful moment. Let's just enjoy it. Is any peaceful moment a peaceful moment without a fly buzzing by? Not in Africa. Have to have a fly. I'm so glad to see that she wasn't fighting off any scavengers. She can really just enjoy this meal, or had enjoyed the meal. The stench is still quite strong. And I think that she's given up on it. She's decided that she's had enough. Oh well, it fell on the floor, but she wasn't that into it anyway at this stage. Oh, some of that pink cloud that we've been seeing for the last couple of days, just starting to tinge the clouds just a tad. I hope that means that we're going to get another spectacular sunset. Beautiful. There's nothing quite as iconic as a leopard in a marula tree, draped beautifully, looking comfortable, legs dangling on the side. It's a magazine shot right there. Safari lover, you'd like to know if leopards get hairballs. Certainly. They try their best to pick off the fur before they start eating, and then when they do, it's very, very funny to watch because they just kind of pull with their incisors. Because when we usually see them eating, they're eating with using their carnassials, and the canines not really for eating. The canines are used to grip onto prey and pull them down. But we don't see them using their incisors, those front teeth, too often, except when they try to pull fur. And it gets stuck in their gums and they make all sorts of funny faces. And some of that fur does get consumed, and then they spit it out in a hairball. That right there is food coma face. Shame she's got some flies irritating her. Beautiful girl, still panting quite a bit, and she'd need to because she's been eating and because of the heat of the day. Anyway, we'll chat about that when we come back, and we'll send you over to Steve in Pridelands.
Well, everybody, car is being pestered by flies, and we've found a tree that also seems to attract animals or organisms such as flies. It's a marvelous example of the purple pod terminalia, or the purple pod cluster leaf, in full flower and at the same time in fruit. So we discussed earlier about how the grasses would seed again and trees will fruit again as well. So they've gone into full pod and now they're flowering again. So it's not impossible for them to do so. And the net-veined beetles are loving it. It's very hard to get them on camera, but they're swarming around the tree. And I'm surprised we can't smell it. This tree and the flowers have got a very, very off smell. There we go. There's a little net vein that just flew through. He's hovering. So it's really nice to get an example of this tree in both of its stages, leaf, flower and fruit. A very nice tree to see. It's very commonly found in valley bottoms. It's known to be quite an encroaching species in areas of disturbance. And the very hard seeds are eaten by baboons and parrots. Brown-haired parrots that we find regularly love the seeds of these, and they make a very nice earring as well. You pop them in your ear, a beautiful little purple pod. The shoots and the leaves are very edible, eaten by a wide variety of animals, including elephant and kudu, impala, giraffe. And they're well used in areas where they encroach, to chop the branches and to actually use it as a brush packing. Because it might encroach in an area of disturbance, it can actually be utilized for the purposes of rehabilitation. A relatively hard wood has been used for building of small huts and pretty useful firewood. Sipho, I'm not familiar with any medicinal purposes of this tree. Been looking around because it is Medicinal Monday tomorrow, so I was hoping to do a tree on this property that doesn't occur on Juma, that I haven't done before. And this one came to mind very quickly, but I haven't been able to find anything from a human sort of cultural medicinal use. All that we have is the wood. The use of the wood and the plant is edible for animals. So I don't know of anything that it's useful for, but from a human use point of view through the medicine, but it's very well used by insects and birds, mammals. It's a very nice shade tree as well. It binds the soil. And it's a very pretty tree. Very, very pretty tree. It's got leaf for a majority of the year, except for the most dry months. And the pods will stay on the tree also for a very long time. Okay, well, we're going to move on from our purple pot, try to find you a nice sunset, and we're going to send you over to and beyond Ngala.
Welcome back to and beyond Ngala, where we finally managed to get one or two of these animals' heads up. And you can see mostly tails flicking, some bellies moving, and paws up in the air. Now, I'm Yapi, and behind the camera we've got Owen. And we've had an interesting afternoon trying to find these lions. There's actually two prides of lions within this area. They're quite close to each other. And the old female over there, there's a big lioness. She is related to some of the females in the other pride. And they don't often meet. And when they do meet, it's normally not very friendly, as one would expect of related lions. You just have a look at that face. You can see it carries the years, all the experience. Now, The lions in the other pride, there's a lot of young males in that. And from what I've heard is they have chased these ones out of the area. And they come to find this tall grass that's actually on quite a nice, cool spot of soil. Like the soil here where the lions are laying looks quite wet, and I think for them it's a little bit more comfortable. Today was very, very hot, quite humid as well. And then you can notice all the movement, and that's because of all the flies and biting insects in this area. But we'll sit here for a little while longer, see if they might get more active. In the meantime, we'll head over to Tswalu.
So she's actually moved the kill now. She's adjusted it and she started to eat on what's left. And we made the wrong call. It isn't a springbok, it's actually an impala. So we couldn't see very much of it, but when she picked it up, it was quite clear that it was a female impala. So bad call from my side. I didn't look clearly, but wouldn't want the viewers correcting me on live air without me correcting myself first. So she is in fact eating a female impala. So the cubs haven't come in. What was amazing is that she actually dragged it. She moved it from there because there was a whole lot of those armoured ground crickets. They changed their name to katydids now, but the ground crickets were all over it, eating at the flesh and eating at the moisture. So as soon as she went towards it, they all started scattering, and she picked it up and she moved it further out from the bushes, but better access for her and the cubs to feed on it. But I think also that half the ground crickets then fell off. Such a full tummy. I don't know if they could eat that much more. She certainly looks like she could eat a lot more, but those cubs, their stomachs are just so full. I'll be very surprised. But the one's tucking in. So they'll start pretty much from a month to 6 weeks. That's when they're old enough to start having their first taste of meat. But at that time, she'll still be supplementing some of their diet with milk. They're old enough now. They're no longer suckling. They have been weaned, so she doesn't have to expend some of the energy to produce milk. All she has to do is keep feeding them, and feeding 4 mouths is quite something, but it's even harder when they continue to grow. Then she's got to feed them quite regularly. So you probably find she's hunting every 2 to 3 days on average in order to get enough food for themselves. They probably on average need about 5 to 7 kilograms of meat per day, but a female impala close on 30 to 40 kilograms at most. So that will provide them food for a few days. Everyone's apparently loving the cubs tucking in. They must eat, they need to eat, they need to keep up their energy, because with cheetah, they never know when their next meal is going to come along. And especially for her, with them trailing her, staying with her while she's walking, trying to hunt at the same time, it is quite challenging. But fortunately, cheetah mothers are very good mothers. They do provide well for their cubs. I mean, we've got some here with that have had 5 cubs at the same time, and 4 have got all the way to adulthood. So providing for that many is quite a challenge. Oh, well, there's some growling going on there. Not too much growling. There was a little bit of noises between them to say that's my piece. We're going to move on from here and go and explore and see what else we can find. But we're glad they are reunited.
How insane is that animal?
This is out of this world. Fantastic. Good, Mama.
Wow, what a way to start off. Just such an incredible privilege to be out here. It just keeps on delivering.
There you go, there you go. Heart is pumping right now.
3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Look at this, everybody. We've got a live kill.
The cock's holding the tail, it's holding tight. Lucky wildebeest.
There's nowhere to go. This is a disaster in the making.
This is the first leucistic zebra I have ever seen in my life.
Oh, here comes a lion. Run, little guy. Go on.
Something that I have never seen before in my entire life that you are now watching live.
My heart is in my mouth, everybody.
Look at this. It's gonna make it. It's going, it's going.
This is just too magical. Hi, little guys. That's great, isn't it?
Has it just pretended to be dead? That is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Look at that. Scuba Steve has got a friend.
You've got a friend in me.
It couldn't be a better morning. This is just too special.
Oh my goodness, we've got a turtle.
How epic is the fact that we're coming to you live from the Chobe River? It's the most incredible feeling to be here. This is live and we're in Rwanda. This is a very, very different adventure, charged with emotion.
Look at that little zebra about to be born. There's the head. Oh, you clever mare. Well done.
I did not think I would ever face my fears like this.
She has been posing very beautifully for us for the last 10 minutes or so. Starting to relax a little bit more. When she first dropped a kill and she moved over to the spot, she was still breathing quite heavily and panting, and she's starting to do it just a little bit more, but it's the pace is slightly slower now. And also the heat has started to dissipate quite substantially, although it's very, very humid. So as she digests, or starts to digest all the meat she's eaten over the last day and a bit, her metabolic rate will go up. And the heat that her body is going to be producing will start to go up as she digests. So she'll get even hotter and start to pant quite a lot. And that's why you'll see leopards just kind of taking it very easy after they've had a good meal. It takes a lot of energy to digest a protein. And their diet is, of course, mostly protein. Bit of bone and calcium in there too, but majority is protein. She's so aware of us in every
movement we make, every sound we make, but not in an obvious way. She'll just give a little bit of a glance our way, or you'll see her ears twitching in our direction. And so wildebeest a little quite far behind us that she keeps looking at too, which is very cute.
Can we see it?
No. Oh, look at that. This is how she'll spend the majority of her evening. If not on this tree, then on a nearby tree, or maybe under a nice bush. Hi Katie, that's a really interesting question. You'd like to know if there are any cats that look for the tracks of their prey. No, we're the only animal that tracks visually. But what an animal can do is find generally another one of their own species by sniffing a track, as they leave a little bit of their scent as they move along, but not track prey that way, because to track prey that way you would have to be conscious of the fact that something leaves a trace behind as it walks. And that's something that other animals don't really have the ability to do. That's one of the things that we consider when we think about intelligence, is being able to predict something and to be able to remember something from the past based on something you see. That takes a lot of intelligence. Majority of animals are working on the right here and right now, the present. They see an animal or a prey species, they smell a prey species, and then they act on that. But in order to see a track and then connect that this track belongs to their prey, and then be able to predict movements based on that track, requires a lot of intelligence that other animals don't have. Oh, we can see our wildebeest now. It must be so lovely to be a young leopard. It's curious about everything. Somewhere there. One of the nicest things about leopard sightings, I find, especially as the sun goes down, is the potential. At the sighting, we know that the kill has fallen on the ground, so there's potential for scavengers, and potential for other leopards to come around. So patience pants are required here. Leopard lady, you'd like to know, how did Kara get that tear on her ear? Well, we should just ask her. Kara, how'd you get that tear on your ear? Looks like it must have been very painful when it happened. But I have no idea how she got that tear. I remember seeing the tear, so I've only had a handful of sightings with Kara. Once when she was a tiny, tiny, tiny cub. And then once or twice in Simbambili. That's been in the last 5 months or so. And she did have that tear the last time that I saw her. But I have no idea how she got it. But actually, Darby was saying to me that he had seen her and Shadulu together, and that Kara had been quite fierce and aggressive towards her mother. And considering that she's that way towards her mother, it wouldn't be surprising that she's had confrontations with other leopards, maybe even from her mother. And that would result in tatty ears like that. Because pulling on ears is one of those easy things that is sticking out from the head that another animal can get a hold of. Beach girl, you'd like to know if she could be starting to carve out a territory? Absolutely. This is exactly what she's doing now. So I said to you a couple months back, last time I had a sighting with her, she was in Simbambili. But her mother's territory is in Simbambili too. So now she's got to compete with Tlalamba, who is moving north, who really, her territory seems to be all over the place. She's going to compete with Nzutini, who's also in Simbambili, so that's been pushing her further north. That's why I said earlier, this is such an interesting time for a young leopard's life. She's independent now. They reach independence in a year and a half. Sometimes a little bit earlier if the circumstances needed to be that way. So she'll truly begin to find her space. And that's really nice for us because it means that we can go over to a certain area and know who we are likely to find. Look at that focus and curiosity. I like when they dip their head lower than their shoulders like that. It really looks like they're so curious about something, but they're also not sure. Just trying to figure it out. Look at that. What is that? That's what that dip down looks like. What is that? Kind of reminds me of when dogs tilt their head in curiosity. Leopards, their heads will be up and then suddenly dip down. Also, speaking of territories, remember that leopards only defend territories against the same sex. So she's not competing with male leopards, she's only competing with other females that are around. She looks like she's struggling just a little bit with her balance. There goes that head again. Still panting quite heavily. I hope she'll go down to the dam for a drink. And preferably before the sun sets. Well, I can't see the wildebeest anymore. Sam, you'd like to know when will she start mating and have her own cubs? I mean, potentially or biologically, she can start to do that now, but that's not what will happen. Around 3 to 4, she'll have her first litter. And that's why or at least I am, getting a little excited about Tlalamba because she's that age now. Of course, there's no evidence to suggest that she has been mating or is pregnant, but it's that time. But our girl here still has about a year to go. She first needs to establish the territory, you see, and she's in the process of doing that. If she doesn't establish a territory, other females could easily come in and then could potentially kill her cubs. So she needs to first establish a strong boundary to her territory so that she can safely raise cubs. Settled down again and got some beautiful light. Just kissing her there. I'm going to send you over to Pridelands for now. I'm going to stick around here.
Well, thank you, Trish. Welcome to a beautiful sunset, everybody. It is that time of day where we are just going to take it real easy. Take a seat, lie down, whatever it is you feel most comfortable doing. Take a deep breath. Just breathe it in. We're going to keep quiet for a moment to allow you to just enjoy this beautiful scene. Butterflies taking this in with complete pleasure. Lisa G, deep breath in. Very peaceful, isn't it, everybody? It is, after all, Sunday. Time to look back on the week past. Some positives, some negatives perhaps. It's all good, doesn't matter, no judgment. I'm looking forward to a positive week, full of joy, full of abundance, full of love, and blessings to you all as we take another deep breath and send you over to and beyond Ngala.
And the rest of the pride has just got up and moved away, and you can see this young male lion is contemplating very hard whether he should get up and go. He's just carefully watching him. There we go, there's the rest of the pride busy moving. I can hear some of them calling each other, some of the young ones. Probably trying to urge them on to move. And the initial move in the evening is usually quite a slow process if there's no clear intention of what their plan is. You can see some of them are laying down, and then once the others catch up, then they start moving again. The sun's quite low at the moment, so this entire clearing's covered in shade now, and it's cooled down dramatically, and it's what's given them a little bit of more energy. And one might ask yourself the question, are they going to move off and leave this young male? Well, for them it's not really that much of a issue whether he comes or stays. As long as the female's got their last litter with them, they are more than happy to move on. There's also another male that's called further west of where we are. So in the opposite direction of what these lions are moving to. And that's definitely also a big driving factor in why they decided to move. Now, the question I'm asking myself is the other male that called part of the pride that chased them earlier, or is it a big male? From what I could hear, I'd say it's a young male. It didn't sound as deep and as long or a prominent a call as what a territorial male lion would do. You can see the ones at the back's also getting up and moving now. And they're moving spread out across this clearing, because even though there's enough cover, they're heading into quite a dense area, and there's a likelihood of encountering animals like impala or even some buffalo bulls in this area. You can see that white female is looking back this side. She seems to be one of the ones that's always concerned about the rest of the pride that's staying behind or lagging behind. And it's interesting when you do get to have the opportunity to watch a pride of lions carefully, as we have been able to do with this particular pride. You notice the individual's behavior. And she's usually the one in between, the ones going and the ones staying. I think that's why some of them have settled there. They're probably waiting for this young one to catch up, even though the two larger females are not particularly fond of having him around at this stage because he's quite taxing. The young ones still see him as part of the pride. They grew up with him around and they know him as a member of them. You can see he has a big yawn. He's noticing the bothering flies more now. There's a good shake. And up. He's grown quite a bit since the last time I saw him, and even though he looks a little bit scrawny, he's not looking too bad. His limp has healed relatively well. I can hear another lion calling in the direction it is looking. Doesn't seem to be too much in a hurry. And have a look at that, he's even marking. Maybe it's a reaction to the other call. Now the young male that I would expect be the one calling is more or less the same age, or a little bit younger, maybe a year younger than this guy, and there's two of them. And from what I've seen him do and how he stood up against the pride males or the dominant males within this area at the moment, maybe he does have some fight left in him. Personally, I'd say he's quite brave. He's been sticking around, even though the odds was against him. He's even had a very bad limp. And unfortunately for him, I don't think it'll ever fully heal.
Imagine having your own secluded African bush home where you and your friends can enjoy the ultimate safari experience. If you sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer, this could become a reality. Tumbeta House is located in the heart of Djuma Private Game Reserve, the home of Wild Earth. You could win a chance to stay at this intimate wilderness retreat, offering you the rare and highly sought-after privilege of your own home in the bush. The prize includes 3 nights for 6 people and includes daily game drives, a chance to see the Wild Earth Camp, and have dinner with one of our guides. Sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer before the end of February 2021 and you could be heading to Djuma, the place that we call home. Available dates are limited, so terms and conditions apply.
Being a safari driver requires some serious multitasking ability. You've got to be able to talk, look at the road, steer, and occasionally get the vehicle into the right gear.
Do not crash into any trees. Oh, no,
Just jump into the car and hope for the best, and you'll see where it takes you. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm surprised they're moving as fast as that didn't go well.
Who is the best driver? Well, me, of course, although some of the cam ops might disagree.
Hi, my name is Tristan Dix, and I am a guide here at Djuma Private Game Reserve for Wild Earth. We love connecting you to the African bush, and we always look forward to all of your questions. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, you'll need to register on the website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit a question below the live feed. Catch up with me on Wild Earth.
Baby pangolin. This is off the charts. This animal is about from your fingertips to your elbow. That's the total length of this animal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is like now my 4th Christmas in a week. We should do this more often.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
there comes that pink streaming through the clouds. Wow. Just love it. The evenings these last couple of days have just been phenomenal. Not just with sightings, but that brilliant pink light and just the feeling of it. I think our girls also enjoying the sunset. Nice and cool now. She looks comfortable draped over that branch. Still paying attention very much to little sounds that she hears, anything she sees in the distance. Where she is at the moment, it's quite open, or it's quite clear, so she'll be able to see for quite some distance. Also, when you're a young, curious leopard, many things grab your attention. I think that's why she's finding it just a little bit difficult to relax and fall asleep. If this was Tingana and he had just eaten a meal, he would not be lifting his head up for anybody. He would be so used to the sounds and the sights. But the skull still getting used to everything in this area, which could potentially be her territory. Jonathan, you'd like to know how much weight could a fully grown leopard drag up a tree? So this number is a little bit controversial. Some sources, obviously it depends, of course, on the condition of the leopard, but some sources will say half its body weight, especially for a leopard that's not in good condition. And then some sources will even say a leopard's body weight. And then I've even heard quoted its weight times 1.5 times its weight, so even more than its weight that's able to drag up. And that's because of its stocky body. It's got a very strong stocky body and a thick neck to assist them in doing that. But in my experience, it's most likely its weight or just under. At least that's what I've seen. Oh, look at that stretch. Look at that stretch. Something that is helpful as evidence for this is Tlalamba. I've seen Tlalamba try to hoist a fully grown female nyala. So a fully grown female nyala is about 60 kgs. A fully grown big female leopard is about 60 kgs. And at that time, Tlalamba was probably, I'd say maybe 45 to 50 kgs. Actually, no, 45 kgs at that time. It was about a year ago. And she was unable to hoist that nyala. But she could still pick it up. She was just unable to create enough force and momentum in order to get it up into the tree. So that's less than her body weight. But now, I'd say Tlalamba is a little heavier than that. Maybe she could. But I haven't seen it. Very, very, very strong and stocky. Well, now she's just chilling, as if she wasn't chilling before. So I'm going to send you over to Steve in Pridelands and see what he's got to show you.
lovely calls of the crested francolin. I was just allowing you to absorb that there. Oh, off he goes. He got a bit spooked and jumped away from us before, and then sat on top of this dead tree. He was making lots of noise. And that was a little contact call that he was making there to try and find out where his covey of ladies has maybe gotten to. And now, as with all of these birds, fallen down into the long grass and vanished. Okay, well, we're going to head on back up the road here. We said we'd keep doing some birding, so it's nice to see another bird up close. The crested francolin is identified by the black beak and the orange legs. Some people confuse it with the Natal spurfowl, which got an orange beak, orange legs, and doesn't have the same white supercilium on the eye. Supercilium is what they refer to with regards to over here around the eye. I don't know what the word means exactly, but it's got to do with that. So we always talk about the shrikes. Shrikes have always got sort of a mask or some form of supercilium. Not sure if it's interchangeable. That lovely time of evening where it's really nice and cool. Just going to head up the hill here, really getting a hang of the property now. We have a good idea of where we are getting signal and where we aren't. Seems to, so far, it's been okay, constant. The areas we're not getting has been pretty constantly not getting. So we're going to head on back up towards the north, go and have a look around Leopard Dam again, because we are going to find a leopard around Leopard Dam, everybody. We're going to. Not as posing as Cara is this evening. I'm trying to remember, Cara, what must be just over 2 now. I think Trish got to in January of last year, year before, as a cub. Time does fly. So what, she's just two and a bit? The woodlands of Pridelands, everybody. The woodlands of Pridelands. Now, because I remember we were still bushwalking then. Herbie, myself, and Senzo tracked Shadulu down with. She had 2 cubs at the time, right down on the bottom southwestern corner of Djuma. We got her there. We got Trish through to see her with the vehicle, and then that afternoon she saw the cubs actually on the boundary up the tree. In the tree, the little cubs, and well, look at how Cara's grown.
I've just repositioned so we could get a good look at her, because she's gotten up now and looking in an easterly direction. No longer admiring the sunset. There's so much happening. There were some elephants that were walking by quite in the distance, but all those little things are getting her attention. I'd love to know what her plan is for the rest of the evening. Maybe further up the tree, maybe down the tree, to see if there's anything nice about that snack that I dropped down there. Oh, go. Go. Try again, try again. I don't know if you saw there, but there was quite a few black bits to that carcass. So it's definitely not in its best condition, shall we say. Not the freshest produce out here. There she goes. What will you do with it? I think she's just surprised that it was still on the ground by the time she went to get it, right? So maybe she's going to go hoist in another tree. Well, I'm going to follow her and find out. I'm going to send you over to Tristan in the meantime.
Well, Trish tries to follow a leopard. We're trying to see if we can find our leopard. I've got tracks for Kuchava's male cub, which astound me. His footprints are ginormous. I cannot believe how big they are. It looks like a big male leopard, like Tingana-sized footprints, but it comes right from where she was this morning and where he was last seen, and walks towards this area. But the reason why I've just gone off-road is that there's a smell of something dead right here. And it's been a hot day, so things spoil quite fast. So I'm wondering if maybe there isn't a dead animal that he's been attracted to, and that's why he's come this way. Just going to quickly check a little bit down the driveway here. I don't smell it now. I smelt it just now, but now it's kind of, I think we've been in the area for so long now, I can't actually pick up the scent of it. I was going to say there's a scrub here, but the scrub here ran away as well. We're not having much luck today. I mean, we were there in that area where Kara was. There was no sign of her, no sign of the kill. Impala's alarm called. We drove around a little bit, nothing. We've come here, we've picked up tracks for Tandi's male cub, we've just picked up tracks for Marips, and we've picked up tracks for Kuchava's cub, but no luck with either of them at this stage. Just trying to smell if I can smell it. The wind is blowing from this way, so maybe it's a little bit further back than I initially thought. It's so thick in there though, and if a leopard does have a kill and it's just tucked it in underneath a tree, you won't see it at all unless you drive right on top of where that leopard is. It's really dense there. The grass is kind of at my shoulder height when I'm sitting in the vehicle, and that makes life very difficult when it comes to actually finding any sign of these kills. The other problem is that where he walked on the side is the fire break, but the fire break has not been cut, nor has it been burnt last year, so it's just completely green in that area. His footprint where he kind of. We'll carry on, we'll see what else we can find in the meantime. I think we're sending you off to somewhere else in Africa, I just don't know where.
She's now moved over to another marula and is perfectly timed hiding her face behind that branch. She's also taken the remainder of her kill and put it in a triple fork in the tree. She's good at finding these cozy places for her kills. Whether it's a hollow in a tree or a nice kind of depression where there's 3 branches coming off. At least we get to see some gorgeous paws. Gorgeous, one may say. No, one probably doesn't say that because it's not English. Gorgeous paws. There we go. I think she might settle in here. This is a nice tree. If I were a leopard, I'd like it too. I'm going to send you over to Tswalu while we watch this girl and this gorgeous sunset.
So, welcome back to Tswalu. We're just driving around, bumbling as we call it, to see what we can find. But I'll stop here. It's a lot easier for Morgan and the camera. But we do believe, based on the types of clouds we have, if we go all the way around, sort of a 260, 270, that there is some weather coming in probably tomorrow or maybe the next day. It's definitely building up for rain on that eastern horizon. But then you just get all those beautiful high clouds. There's a half a moon. I don't know if we can get the moons up there. Sort of, quarter moon? So it is busy growing. There it is. It is busy at this stage, known as waning, growing. So halfway there, probably about another 10 days or so before full moon. You can actually see how fast those clouds are moving up there. So very strong winds up at the top. You just see the puffy clouds moving. And by looking at what we have, when our sun sets, which is still another 30 minutes away, we should have some really spectacular colours again. Sort of pinks and purples, judging by this cloud cover. There's something down the road, Morgan. I can see something on the right-hand side of the road, right down the road. Maybe it's a bit far for the camera. There are 2 jackals standing in the road. There we go. Nice surprise. A jackal just trotting down the road. So with a slightly cooler weather now, the cooler breeze, they will come out early looking for food. We don't have to worry. The mum cheetah and cubs are far away from these two, so they're not going to steal any food from those particular cheetah. But they could be on the hunt to find food for themselves. They'll eat quite a lot of rodents, lots of insects, also fruit, and scavenging being one of their main things. But springbok lambs, they're known to take down springbok lambs, and even as a pair can work to take down a springbok as well if they wanted to. That's nice to just... I don't think that they really see us in the road. They're still quite far away. So Charles is asking, how does the condition of the moon affect animal behavior? Well, we tend to find that if it is full moon and it's brighter at night, animals like the male cheetah tend to go hunting. They try using the light of the moon to continue to hunt in the dark, which would be outside of the norm for them. It does also mean that the prey animals can also see better on those full moon nights. It certainly affects the sort of circadian rhythm of animals that they are aware. Coming into the next full moon, I heard Steve was talking about the impalas starting to think about rutting and maybe making their noises. Certainly they are cued by the length of day and night, and often rutting between the 2 full moons going into the winter season. They are trotting towards us. Let me just go forward. They're still in an open clearing. They're far enough away from us. Oh, no, the vehicle doesn't want to let me go forward at all. So, oh, there we go. It's always a gut-wrenching moment when the ignition just goes click, 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 and doesn't want to start. But I think I'm going to put you there, Morgan. This little tree's going to be in the way for a second, but then they're going to trot out past that, right past us in that gorgeous afternoon golden light. Yes, now they've seen us. Starting the vehicle did alert them to our presence. But they definitely seem to be on a mission. Relatively good condition, nice shiny little coats. So the black-backed jackal. We don't get the side-striped jackal here, only the black-backed jackal. Oh. Quick itch. So this could well be a monogamous pair. They do tend to mate for life. This is unusual. They're normally quite secretive. To see them sort of doing a little bit of grooming and things like that is really nice to see. So there are also, at the moment, a lot of quails around in this much taller grass for them. So lots of quails and quail chicks. They are smelling on the wind, but I don't know if they are necessarily smelling anything in particular, but if there was a carcass or there was signs of a fresh meal or a fresh kill, they would certainly be trotting in that direction. They've got an incredible sense of smell, and they can smell that sort of a kill on the wind, and they would go in, approaching, hoping to get their little morsel if one of the predators has moved on. Oh, there's one. You've noticed that change in behavior? We just heard a territorial call from, look at that golden light in their eyes, beautiful. So one of them is just territorial, called quite far behind us, and that change in the behavior you just saw immediately stopped, and he picked his ears up to listen. So maybe if we're lucky, we actually get a jackal calling. Maybe he answers or she answers in response. We are quite lucky to spend this amount of time, especially in this golden afternoon light. Safari Lover is asking the question, will the jackals hunt together as a pair? Absolutely. Sometimes one is the distraction and the other one goes in, but I have seen two jackal as a pair harassing a springbuck, where the one's sort of nipping at the heels and the other one's keeping the horns at bay, so they work together as a team, and they will pull down prey, so they do certainly work together as a team to pull down prey that's slightly larger. They're going to pop out just behind us. We'll see if we need to move the vehicle. If we don't, we'll stay where we are. They're going to come out. Here they come. They actually almost come closer. So constantly smelling, sniffing. Sometimes there might be a tasty morsel on the ground that is available for them to eat. There we go, found something. Those pretty little pink flowers that you're seeing in the foreground there are known as indigophorus. They're making quite a nice ground cover at the moment. What we do have with these jackals is that they are in a relatively open clearing, because I certainly don't anticipate finding them in the areas where the grass is so thick. So I didn't get the name there, but the question was, what prey could jackal take down? So about a springbuck small impala is about their largest, but they can certainly do take down things like guinea fowl and rabbits, little scrub hares. We're going to reverse. They seem to be pretty relaxed with our presence, so we might as well try and keep them on camera. I think, Morgan, maybe just let's turn around completely, because it's much easier to drive forwards than to drive backwards. Probably leave them like that for now, and we can watch them trot off down the road and see. They have been quite busy. So jackals also have a wide variety in their diet, in that they'll also eat fruit, they'll eat birds, insects, even fruit of the tree called the jackalberry. They'll eat buffalo thorn fruit as well. And here we've seen them eating Damara land mole rat. Oh, there we go. Oh, he's just lying in the road. The sand's nice and warm. He's just patiently waiting. All the viewers should be going, oh. is a shame. They do tend to get quite a bad rap, the poor jackals, but I like them. I think that they're pretty cunning. They have a purpose. This one's managing to find some kind of a food. I don't know what it's finding, but certainly finding the odd morsel. It's eating it quite quickly, so not fast enough for me to actually see what it's eating, which would be nice, but see what happens there. Maybe also going to just lie down. Yeah, there we go. Also lie down. They've trotted far enough. Now it's nap time and then they'll get moving. Michelle is asking what are the main differences between the jackals and the fox. Well, jackals are foxes, so there shouldn't be too many differences. As far as I know, maybe the viewers can help me with that one, but a jackal is pretty much like a fox. He's just the African version of a fox. So they'll be quite successful, and they often, when they raise the pups in a den, they often have multi-generations at a den, and the latest pups that they've had will often help them raise the next set of pups, and in that way then learn parenting skills. So they are quite good at raising pups. So this pair would be owning some form of a territory around this particular area. It doesn't necessarily have to be a very large territory, but one of the reasons for them calling is to establish who has territory where. So we're just going to carry on here for as long as they want to snooze on TV, we'll stay with them.
When on safari, there's nothing better than an evening spent under the stars chatting around a fire, with the sounds of the wild all around you. If you sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer, you can build your own memories by joining our guides for regular fireside chats. Subscription payments can be made by PayPal, credit card, and now bank transfer. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Sometimes love wants to make you sing. And sometimes love wants to make you bow and fan your wings to your bow. For the southern yellow-billed hornbill, these are signs that love is in the air. These birds are destined for a season of monogamy at least. Breeding pairs are in it for the survival of their chicks. But before love commences, the male needs to woo his valentine with food in the form of nuptial gifts.
I'm Nikki here at Ambion Ngala in South Africa. I love getting questions from viewers about all the small things within the environment and how it all is integrated with one another. If you want to ask me any questions, please simply register with the Wild Earth website, head across to the Live Safari page and then post your questions there. I'm looking forward to chatting to you on my next Wild Earth drive.
Guys, have a look at what we've got. This is better than my birthday. Look at that. This is the first time that I ever see cubs this small. This is so special. This has officially just become my best sighting of all times.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
My favorite animal is a leopard, purely because I just think they are just the epitome of feline grace and power, and the way they can move about in any environment and remain hidden until they want to be seen, I just find incredibly intoxicating, and they're amazingly beautiful.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
I am so glad, I'm sure you all know it, to have found this little guy. We've left Kara, she was on a mission. She jumped down that tree and she left towards the east. So we decided to let her go on her way, and then on our way back out of Buffelshoek and back onto Djuma, we find this flap-necked chameleon that has made my day. I've been looking for a chameleon so much these last few evenings, and finally we found one. It's right near the gate, so it's welcoming everybody who comes in, with its little smiley face on the side too. Now, this is a flap-necked chameleon. It's the only type of chameleon we get here in Djuma, and it's quite a small one. In fact, it's probably the size of a foam nest frog. I'd say with its tail extended, it's only about 15 centimeters. Without the tail extended, just a tiny baby, 8 to 10 centimeters. See, it's quite a little guy. You can hear the bubbling casinos also in the background. Those beautiful nighttime sounds, and now we're finding some creatures that we would find when the light is low and the evening rolls in. And now, after we found this chameleon, we're going to have to look for owls, bush babies, all those wonderful things we can find in the evenings. Now, I love chameleons. I think it's I can't even say it. One of my favorites. Can't say favorite. And it can get much larger than this, about 30 centimeters, even a little bit more. Fred, you'd like to know under which conditions it would change color? It's a common misconception that they change color based on the color that is surrounding them. So they don't change color based on wanting to camouflage. They change color based on a hormonal response. So if they're angry or aggravated, they'll change color. If they want to mate, they'll change color. But the extent of the color change for a flap-necked chameleon is a lot less than, say, the chameleons in the Americas, or like a Jackson's chameleon, which change to some really awesome colors. A flap-necked chameleon kind of ranges between a green to a pale green, yellowy, and black when it is aggravated or it is injured. So the reason it seems as if chameleons are changing color in response to their environment is because they want to feel comfortable and inconspicuous. And that elicits a hormonal change, which then gives us the color change response. So it's not as if they see, oh, I'm on a green leaf, but then I'm on a yellow leaf, so I'm going to change to yellow. It's a desire. Maybe desire is the wrong word, but they want to be comfortable and feel safe, and that's a hormonal thing. But that also corresponds to changing color that appears as if they're changing just for camouflage. Steve-O, you'd like to know if they're nocturnal? They're not. They're diurnal. And that's why it's easy to find them in the evenings, because during the day they're out foraging, they're moving about, and they camouflage very well.
But in the evenings, there's alarm calls to my left. Those sound good. Let's go. So in the evenings, what happens is they go onto a tree where they're going to settle down for the night, and then that makes it easy to spot them. Whereas during the day, they're moving however slowly it is. Anyway, I'm really glad that I got to show that to you. Maybe we'll see more as the evening progresses, but I'm going to follow up on those alarm calls. So let me send you over to Tswalu in the meantime.
I'm just going to... So look at that. That's the beautiful sun setting over the Kalahari. Really, really stunning colours. Every cloud has a golden yellow lining. You can just hear all the little barking geckos starting to come out, making their little noises. And believe it or not, our two jackals are still fast asleep in the road with us. They've chosen to stay snoozing, moved a little bit, but we'll quickly show you there. Very cooperative two jackals, still having a snooze. Maybe they're also waiting for the sunset. They're just missing a good glass of wine to enjoy that sunset. Hopefully our viewers have got a good glass of wine, or a good cup of coffee, depending on where you are and what time it is. But we'll just be silent for a minute or two while we appreciate that. Apparently everyone is loving the sunset. Is that not just stunning? Those beautiful sort of golden rays coming out now. No sunset is the same. And we've been very fortunate when we've got cloud cover on the horizon that we do really get beautiful colours. So as the sun sets on the Kalahari, we're going to send you across to Tristan.
So we followed our nose, no, I'm joking, I was going to say to the smell of death, and we found our avoca, but no, it wasn't the case. We just bumbled along the main road, and here he is sitting next to the road. He's a hot cat at the moment. It's still very, very warm out here, so he's panting quite heavily. He's not full at all, but it's just that it's still so warm even at this time of the night. And hopefully we're going to get him to give us a nice roar. It would be good to hear him roaring. I didn't hear him this morning, funnily enough, and given we were with Kalamba not far from here, and Trish was at the hyena den, if he had been roaring, one of us would have picked it up. So I don't know why he's so quiet. Generally, male lions like to kind of tell everybody about their presence first thing in the morning and first thing as darkness kind of sets in. But maybe he'll provide us with something tonight. If I keep quiet, you might actually even hear his breathing. I believe you can faintly kind of hear his breathing. For us, it's actually quite loud. He's fairly close to where we are. We'll flop down. Now, even him flopping down like that is not necessarily indicative of him not going to roar. A lot of the time, male lions do just roar from flat like that. They're not that perturbed by doing it. What's interesting, though, is that we're starting to see a very different sort of movement of the Avoca males at the moment. When they first arrived, we had all three of them. Then there was the split, and we saw sort of Blondie and Mohawk spending most of their time around the sort of northern sides of Djuma, and they would venture a little bit to the kind of southern side, but not often. Then eventually they started to shift way more south, and in doing so they dragged the Nkuhumas with them south and west. And we had the dark mane Avoca. He pretty much just lived on Buffelshoek and southern Manyeleti. Very, very seldom would he even come anywhere near Djuma or Torchwood. And all of a sudden, in the last little bit, since the Talamatis have kind of been moving southwards a little bit, we're starting to see the dark mane individual moving much further south. I mean, he's going into Arathusa now, into Lugari, Hofmans, even as far as Chitwa these days. There's been a drastic shift in his movements too, and what's interesting to me is how he's at one point was just pretty much with the Talamatis all the time. Wherever they went, he would go. He wouldn't kind of leave them alone. But since the Talamati pride has grown and then those sub-adults, or those cubs have become sub-adults, we're seeing a very different behavior from this Avoca. It's almost like he's kind of dropped off there, and maybe it's because there isn't a lot of mating opportunities for him at the moment within the Talamatis, and with these Torchwood lionesses that were in estrus, and maybe some of the Nkuhumas coming into estrus, he's starting to push and try and find new mating opportunities, and that's kind of dragging him into new areas. I'm pretty sure that that they are going to come together again at some point, the three. I know the other day there was an interaction, I think it was between the Mohawk and the dark-maned Avoca, and it was quite an aggressive initial interaction, and that's to be expected. You must understand that these guys haven't spent much time together at all in the last 2 years, and so when you're not together a lot, if all of a sudden you see another male lion, immediately that's going to be kind of warning signal. You're going to get onto the offensive, but once they kind of establish that they are who they are through chemical scents and maybe even the roars themselves, you'll find that maybe, just maybe, we might see the three of them actually join up once more and kind of patrol around again. I think for that to happen, though, we would need to get pressure from other male lions, which we're not at this stage. Yes, there's those two male lions that were seen yesterday on Nkoro and Torchwood, which are the big males from the Kruger Park side. They're a little bit shy, those males, but they haven't really made much of an attempt to come further to the west, so they're not really putting pressure on these guys. There is another big male that is to the north of us called the S8 male, and then there's another individual, there's the four that we saw briefly at one point on Djuma. They seem to be settling much further north in Manyeleti, up near the sort of Tswalu area, and that S8 or red road male, he's kind of coming down towards sort of Buffelshoek area, but even then it's not really pressure. so to speak. If there's a big coalition that starts to come in here, so 4 or 5 individuals, we might see these guys coming back together in order to try and provide a unified force to kind of push them away. If that doesn't happen, an individual like this evoker who's got the, or in fact 2 of the evokers that have got these injuries that they carry, and if they're on their own and they come across 4 or 5 young individuals, you're going to find that there's going to be something that's going to... Isn't that epic? At the distance that we're at, that would have sent reverberations through probably most of your computers/TVs or wherever you may be watching. That was properly loud next to us. Maybe that's his response to me saying that if other males come into this area, there'll be trouble. A lion like this, though, is going to make sure that he's drawing constantly in order to try and stop that from happening. So we were saying if other males come, but if these guys are vocal and males hear that there's vocal dominant individuals, often that's enough just to deter them for a little bit longer and to keep them away. What will also be interesting now is with that roar is whether those 3 Nkulma females that Trish had, which were probably from where we are now, about 400 meters down the road, 500 meters down the road, if they'll respond to that and come into this direction, or on hearing him decide that he's a threat because he's not the kind of the other 2 and move off and go in his own direction. It will be interesting to see what their response is. They haven't called back, and there's no response from any other lions that I can hear. Wasn't that cool, though? Been a long time since I've had a male lion roar next to me like that. So, Andreas, their roar emanates, basically they've got a very enlarged voice box, if you want to call it that, with muscles that attach basically almost near their sort of diaphragm, so below their lungs, essentially, towards the hips, and it pulls that diaphragm enough to expand the lungs big enough and then compresses that air out through that big voice box that is much larger than what we as humans have in proportion to our body, and that's able then to push this sound out the way that they do. So, they've just got these hugely powerful muscles that are able to pull the diaphragm and push the diaphragm much harder than what ours can do, and that allows the lung capacity to go out a little bit and to force that sound through this large voice box to project it as loud as they do. It's a pretty incredible sound when you kind of hear it. Something that you'll always live with when you have that, particularly when it's as close as this. And it's unbelievable when you hear them at this proximity, because you just kind of you realize just how loud it actually is. And I told you that he'd roar from sitting down. It's not uncommon for these guys to do so. I'm sure he's going to roar again. I doubt that will be the last of his roars this evening. They generally, once they start, they roar pretty constantly for a good sort of half an hour, 45 minutes, and then they start to patrol from there. And he is looking a little on the skinny side. I think he could do with a meal. What he needs to do is hook up with a pride and get himself to Chitwa, and they can go in. Sorry, I'm just helping somebody with where he is at the moment. And so you will see a spotlight that's coming out. So while we sit here and just make sure that these guys don't go the wrong way around this line, let's send you back across to Tswalu.
So I also, like the viewers, cannot believe that I've been in a jackal sighting this long. They've decided now to start thinking about getting up. So the other ones got up and done some stretching. Hasn't moved off too far, but certainly potentially have picked something up on the wind. They are smelling and looking in a general direction. So, no, he's going to trot back to his partner. She's still, nope, I'm snoozing still. So she was alert, she was awake. And nothing yet. So for them, they'll be active from now right up until the early hours of the morning, seeing what they can find with regards to food. See all the armoured ground crickets moving around on the road in the right-hand side of the screen. They'll all be moving up into slightly higher areas. They tend to climb the trees and the bushes at night just to get slightly off the ground. They don't really like the cold, so they do try and go slightly higher up where it's potentially a little bit warmer. Oh, okay, so no activity just yet. I'm going to carry on napping. So if I have a look at the two of them, the one on the left looks slightly larger than the one on the right. So I would say that the one on the left is the male, and then the one on the right would be the female. Such beautiful coats, really, really pretty coats, and quite thick hair as well. So Anne has asked the question, how do jackals communicate with each other? So they'll have like yips and growls, and they almost howl at long distance. It's sort of a territorial marking, that sort of a territorial call that'll space them out amongst them. But if they're at a carcass, lots of growling will take place, and there's lots of sort of dominance displays amongst them. If there's a few jackals at a carcass, it's whoever's the highest ranking tends to get the food and chases the others away. But they all climb in, and there'll be lots of growling, sort of back arching, hair raised, and growling and sort of barking at each other. So quite a lot of different vocalizations for jackal. Francois' comment is a fantastic jackal sighting. I can't believe how lucky we are to have seen them trot down the road towards us and have spent this length of time with them, and them to be this relaxed, just lying and doing their own thing around a vehicle is quite unique. I certainly, in all my time, have never had jackal for this length of time. It's normally a quick flash, and they're such busy little creatures. They're always on the trot, so difficult to stick with them. And the only other time you see them sort of stationary or lying around is if you are present at a kill that they're busy feeding at this point. But they're just catching some nice snooze. So the sun has gone down now. The temperature will start dropping and changing, and they will most likely start thinking to get up and moving, start trotting, staying a little bit warmer as they go. I haven't heard any others calling, so they haven't had the need to feel that they need to respond to a territorial caller. It would be nice if we could get that. But we're going to send you across to Trish at the moment, and we'll probably stay with them for as long as they want to stick around.
Jackals are so cool. They really are. We don't see enough of them here. Well, we tried following up on those alarm calls, but could not see a thing. Not a thing. But it was also in the area where we had previously seen that young skittish male that Tristan might have told you about. And if it was him, it was very unlikely that we were going to see him anyway. But it's always a good thing to follow up on them. Unfortunately, with the length of the grass, it was not possible to find a leopard. But we're now heading towards quarantine. We were kind of all the way by the gate on Triple M. So we're now heading towards quarantine. Maybe there'll be a leopard over there. They all seem to show up in the evenings around that space, and that's because all the herds of impala around there. Ooh, civet. Is that a civet? Oh, Janet. Yeah, let's see if we can get in a little closer. How cool is... Oh, sorry, Scrub here. You were also there in the shot, but the Janet stole your thunder. Let's see if it's still around. That was cool. It's been forever since I've seen a Janet. Oh, it's just jumped into there. Well, at least we have the Scrub here, who is now like, well, your Janet's gone. So look at me instead. Hi, Scrub here. Nice to see you. Let me put that off. Wow, we've really seen some good... I hope that you saw at least the tail of that Janet as it strutted its stuff into the bush. I'm so hoping it was a civet. I've seen the civet once around the room. It came so close to me. It didn't even realize I was there because I was just watching it in the darkness and it made no noise at all. And I was hoping it was a civet, but civets are a little bigger than a Janet. Those Janets are surprisingly small. So we've seen a chameleon, a Janet, or at least the tail of a Janet, and a Scrub here for the evening. What else could the evening hold? I don't know. All I know is I smell potential in the air.
Hi, I'm Sue. I'm from South Africa and I'm the incredibly lucky winner of the Tswalu competition. Tswalu has so much to offer, but we're really looking forward to the game viewing options, as going out with a personal guide who has so much knowledge will just be exceptional. Motsi Lodge looks absolutely amazing and we're so looking forward to spending time there. It really is out of this world. I only registered as an explorer towards the end of January, so when the email arrived stating that I was the winner, it took me totally by surprise. I'd just like to thank Wild Earth and Tswalu for this most incredible prize. It really is a dream come true.
Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Riverbeds are a great way to find water and look for places where elephant have excavated hollows. You can then dig into the sand, and after a couple of feet you should find damp sand, which then can be squeezed out or siphoned off for water. And with water being one of our scarcest resources, it is a good idea to conserve water where and how you can.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at and Beyond Pinder Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on Wild Earth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
Look at this, the little one is up and about. Certainly hasn't had enough milk at this age. No amount of milk is enough. Oh, Corky. Too sweet. Oh, look at this. That is stunning.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
We have a last-minute Kalamba to end the show. That's cool. Quarantine delivers. I mean, we're on Western quarantine at the moment. Nice. Let's just look, see if we can find a leopard. And there she was, on cue. Let's just turn these off. There we go. Just want to see where she turns so then we can get a nice view of the front of her instead of this traveling view. Oh, we've been so lucky and blessed with sightings recently of leopards. Okay, where'd you go? Okay, there you go. Hey, golly girl. Nice to see you. Golly girl. Nice to see you. A little present for us. So happy. So happy. She's been really hanging around at camp or around camp quite a lot and been affirming her boundaries of her territory, wherever that territory is, because, you know, it's been all over the place, but she's really been making those boundary lines very strong. And the presence of the Shidulu, I'm sure, has prompted that. But that's great for us because it means that we get more sightings of her. One of these lights on so I can at least drive. Side light. Any artificial light in the girl. Watch her for a bit. Oh. She did a bit of a low walk there. Something of interest she's seen. When they do that. Oh, we can't see what it is she's seen because it is thick and dark there. But clearly it's very interesting. Last bits of Kalamba bottom and tail. Let's move a little bit forward. Just darted in. Oh, in this general area, but she's gone inside. Well, I hope that means that she's going to be successful tonight with some hunting. Wouldn't that be awesome? I hope that she will be. And obviously, if she hunts in this area and it's an antelope and not a scrub hare, because she does like those little things too, then if there is a nice big antelope, she's going to hoist it. She's going to settle down here, so we're going to have her for the morning. That would be great. Anyway, I'm so happy that we managed to see leopards, cheetahs, jackals, lions, chameleons today. And I'm winding down because it's that time. So thank you for your questions and comments, everyone. We'll see you in the morning.